What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Project Manga Podcast, where we cover One Piece, My Hero Academia, Black Clover, Mashle, Dr. Stone, and Jujutsu Kaisen, week to week. Back this week, covering Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 20. I'm your host, Nickums. And this week, we are joined by a special guest for another one-on-one conversation. I am joined by Axel Blaze. What's up, Axel?
Hello, repping the ball cap long hair gang today.
That's how we do it.
Back on webcam, not confined to my parents' house dog sitting and webcam lists.
Right.
Finally having full access to my nostrils again.
Awesome.
Damn allergies.
Yeah. Well, you were on the show a couple months ago, and that was great. But for people who are new or don't remember, would you mind telling everyone what you do?
Yep. So I'm Axel Blaze. I run the Axel Blaze Productions YouTube channel, and I'm better represented by my channel mascot, Orpheus the Dolphin from Hard Boiled Cop and Dolphin, which, yes, is a Shonen Jump series that not a lot of people read, and that's okay. But I do different content on different anime and manga topics, and most recently, I clickbaited people with my latest video, Phantom Seer should have ended ... earlier. So, yeah, it's a very clickbaity title, but once you get past the first 20 seconds, you realize what the title actually means. So,
nice.
Yeah, just love talking anime and manga. Love talking news, numbers, stuff like that. Because, I mean, obviously, as you know, most people on the internet are just like, we talk about the popular series, but we don't necessarily talk about the other stuff and stuff like that. So, which was very, very interesting, doing a deep dive on actually looking at the numbers from Jump so far this year. Because I know people say you shouldn't pay attention necessarily to the TOC because, you know, just because stuff is at the bottom doesn't mean that it's getting canceled. And that's true. But seeing the stuff that does get the covers, seeing the stuff that does get in the top 3, and seeing the stuff that does get color pages, that does mean stuff. And it's been interesting to see what ranked where, because you wouldn't necessarily think that certain things would be as high as they are, but Jujutsu Kaisen's at the top, so I mean that's not a surprise.
Yes, exactly. Well deserved. All right, awesome. Well, before we get started, we'd love for everyone to take a look at the video description below. That's where you can find links to our individual social media accounts like Twitter, ways you can join our online communities like Discord, or listen to the Project Manga Podcast wherever you normally listen to your podcasts like Spotify. Also, ways you can support what we do here by visiting our online store or our Patreon. Would love for you to check it out. Of course, there will also be timestamps down below, so you can skip segments of series you are not current in or you just don't want to listen to right now. And we will also have Axel Blaze's info in the description for you to click. So please do that. Great stuff. So getting into the discussion tonight, Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 20. One Piece is unfortunately on break this week, but let us start off with Jujutsu Kaisen. You ready, Axel?
Yes, and I'm sad that every time I'm on here is when One Piece is on break.
Seriously?
One day I'll be here
when
there's a One Piece chapter to discuss, but oh well.
Not this time. Next time. All right. So getting into Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 146, about the culling game. And we continue our conversation from last week where they're talking about this angel-type character whose curse technique can extinguish curse techniques. What do you think, Axel?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you haven't read the rules to the culling game yet, here it is for the umpteenth time.
Right.
So, like, it's like, hey, we're going to go over it again. And, like, don't get me wrong, it was great. Like, we're actually seeing, like, application to things and whatnot that wasn't previously there. It's always great to like theorize things on our own, but it's another thing when it's just like, oh hey, here's the people that we care about actually going over these things and contextualizing it a little bit better. So but even with the info dump, there was very important stuff to glean from this chapter, and it was really good. and starting off things with saying that, there's 10 colonies across Japan, but not including Hokkaido. So it's just like, well, there goes the rural action scenes, I guess. Seriously, we're just going straight to the cities, all urban, to brawl it out.
Right. Since you bring up those colonies, I actually cross-reference with a map or whatever. I think I know the 10 cities that these colonies are in. I'll just list them off for the for the benefit of the listeners, in case people didn't want to bother cross-referencing it. Going from bottom to top. So the bottom one, Kagoshima, then Hiroshima, then Osaka, Kyoto, Nagoya. Two in Tokyo, like one of the ones Tengen mentioned was like East Tokyo. So there's like a West Tokyo and East Tokyo. Then going up into Sendai, then Morioka. And the top one is the one I'm least clear on. It's in the north part of Aomori Prefecture. And I'm assuming
wouldn't that be
Mutsu
Kinji?
City, but there are like a few cities where that dot is, but like it's really hard to tell exactly where that dot is. It's something. But
isn't one of them Kinji, or is that part of one of the other 9? Because I know that they're specifically heading out to Kinji, so I'm just wondering if that is one of the 10 then, since that's the one that's... I don't know Japanese geography, and this is the one time that I didn't cross-reference things outside.
Right,
But... that's what I would guess. But...
Yeah. It's interesting that they do mention going to Kinji, and I wonder, like, is that? No, they're going to Kinji to get Hikari. Like Kinji is Hikari, like the guy. So they're going to a person when they're referencing that or whatever. Right. Yep. Never mind. Yeah. It's like I was like, I don't know all the cities up there either. So I don't know. There could be a Kinji for all I know. But yeah, that they're referring to going to see a person or whatever. So yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. And then this diagram is like super, super interesting, where like even Yuji is like, oh, so it's going to go like kind of like this, and kind of almost animating for us the diagram. What I took from this, and let me know if you agree, but basically when the culling game charges up enough cursed energy across all of these 10 colonies, once it like reaches this threshold it's trying to hit, it will unlock like a new technique essentially that draws a line from that one black dot to the other black dot, kind of like a curtain or a veil that's going to then sweep over the entirety of Japan, south of Hokkaido, and bring everyone over to, quote unquote, the other side. It's kind of like a little vague to me, like what that means, but I assume it's related to merging with Tengen eventually.
Right. Probably, because as it is right now, civilians can't see cursed spirits. Mm-hmm. So this is probably going to be that sweeping motion that all of a sudden, like, once this goes through, then we're going to see all these civilians being like, what the hell is that thing that just passed by?
You give me chills right now just thinking about that, because that's going to be chaos if that happens, for sure.
Yeah, because, just consider the fact that, like, with the Shibuya incident, like, those people could not see certain things happening.
Right.
And were just led to slaughter. So, like, this next time around is going to be crazy once this happens.
For sure.
But I do love the fact, though, especially with the cities that you mentioned for the 10 colonies, like we're essentially getting a tour of all the hot spots of Japan. Yes. In all honesty, with like what's being on. But like that, it makes sense though that they're going to want to have, the locations that are going to resonate the most with like people of Japan. Right. If you have some random ass city in the middle of the boonies of Japan. People aren't really going to care about that as much. Right. Maybe the people from those places will be like, oh, that's us in Jujutsu Kaisen. But like more often than not is probably going to be like, we just want to see Tokyo and Osaka and that stuff. So
and there's like fewer people in those other areas, so there's like less potential, not just with people, but also with like the interactions between people driving that animosity, that kind of general base for cursed energy to flourish. So I think these are like the hot spots of like a bunch of human beings, a bunch of monkeys crammed together in one spot, and dealing with those interpersonal relationships and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And as much as I love Hokkaido and I love nature and all that kind of stuff, like that doesn't necessarily, in terms of action and whatnot, that we're going to be getting in this arc, you're not going to get that to the same extent if you have it in Hokkaido
Right.
compared to like Tokyo.
Right.
That's just not how it's going to be. So it's like
if you want a Hokkaido action, you go read Golden Kamuy or whatever.
yeah, Gege is like writing himself out of this fix. So he's like, okay, phew, I don't have to worry about this. Just city action. All right, let's go. So
it is interesting how they described like why Hokkaido is not included, and someone says, I think Tengen says, correct. It is not included because of the Jujutsu Society's barrier. It has already been established as a vast sacred area. And it's like, wow, like I wonder if we're going to get more, elaboration and detail of what that means exactly. Is that like positive energy, or is that just another person kind of like Tengen that was just able to create a barrier powerful enough that Kenjaku isn't really bothering with at the current moment or something? Yeah.
Right. Could be anything. So
exactly.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Right. Going further, we start, as you said, like we get like these rules kind of reiterated and elaborated upon, which is nice for the understanding. Talking about this rule. Rule number 2, any player who breaks the previous rule, rule number 1, which is like declaring your participation in the game. Any player who breaks the previous rule shall be subject to cursed technique removal. And then going over this kind of description of like why Tengen thinks that this actually means death. Like I think last week we were talking about like what does that mean? Just like your technique is removed, you're just a normal person. But yeah, Shoko here on page 5 is like kind of going into some interesting arguments for why this actually means death. What did you think about this, Axel?
Yeah, so I mean, the fact of the matter was, like, there was always this question of like, okay, is the Cullen game only going to be able to be participated by people that had these like curse techniques and whatnot activated, or are other people going to be able to come in with it? And that's the thing. It's just like, okay, like for the people that already, had techniques and whatnot, or even for the people that don't have techniques, what's going to happen to them?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense to like they have like a technique removal if it wasn't already granted to them
by the game
by the transfiguration and that one. Right. So like, but that being said, this does raise a red flag to me that, I mean, it's not like I'm going into this expecting that like, oh, everybody is going to come out of this alive.
Sure,
no,
sure.
That would be the most asinine assumption given what happened with Shibuya incident. Like, no one is safe. No one is safe. But so that being said, then it does make me concerned to see what's going to happen to certain people. And in all honesty, I am concerned that we are going to lose Maki in this arc.
Really?
Because like the fact that she's
like, I'm immune to this like rule. I'm safe.
Yes.
And it's like, not really.
Like, no, like you can't have there are no guarantees in Jujutsu Kaisen. I mean, that was like the fact of the matter with Mekamaru. It's just like, oh, well, I have the deal, and it's like, oh, you gave me this, and then immediately gets offed. Like, no, like as it is, no one is safe, and I have that concern for Maki. I legitimately do. Like, and I mean, she also brings up Panda. Like, what happens to these other people? And like, as we'll see later on too, it's more beneficial for people playing the game to be targeting Jujutsu sorcerers compared to other people.
Sure.
So they're going to be targets, and I've got some theories later on with that too. But yeah, it's interesting that we go into this. I do want to bring up, though, because we skipped over rule number 1.
Sure.
And there are some important things to think about with that. So with rule 1, the fact that people have 19 days to get into the game, we now have a timeline, better timeline, and understanding of what's been going on since the game started. The game started at approximately midnight on October 31st.
Right.
It is now November 9th, which means that 9 days have passed about, and then Megumi's sister essentially has about 10 and a half days left in order for her to join the competition.
Right.
But on top of that, we also find out through Tengen that the ritual is going to be complete in approximately 2 months.
Yeah.
And with that means that things are going to end approximately in January, or something is going to happen on Christmas or New Year's.
Oh, sure.
The fact of the matter is that with the Shibuya incident, since it's lined up with Halloween, like, it's safe to say that another holiday could definitely represent another big event in the timeline. And I mean, it's fitting for a new age to start with New Year's. So just saying, I think that's really the date that we have to look out for. But it is nice to know that we do have a timeline, and just to see how much has already changed, given that 9 days has passed since the Shibuya incident and the sealing of Satoru Gojo. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to say one more thing about the rule number 2 or whatever, this Shoko conversation. Kind of just going more into Shoko's like specific reasoning for why she thinks people will die or whatever. How I mostly interpreted this, which she said, is that like, if this were a binding vow, right? If it were a binding vow, it would be that you couldn't use your technique, right? Like, so you would have a technique, but you'd be bound somehow in not using it. And because your technique is removed, that implies like you don't have it at all. You know what I mean? Like removal would mean like even if you had it, like you don't have it. You know what I mean? You see what I'm trying to say? Anyway, so then she's going, what would it mean to have your technique removed, right? Like it means like you don't have it, like you can't use it at all, aka you're dead or whatever. The only thing I don't understand about her dialogue is at the bottom of page 5 where she says like, and I think that means you die. Otherwise, and this is the part I don't understand, otherwise, everyone would refuse to participate. And I'm slightly confused as to why death makes it more likely to participate than the alternative. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, if there were no other repercussions other than having your technique removed and then you're just a normal person, which we've seen with, several Jujutsu sorcerers, they would rather not be Jujutsu sorcerers. Right. Especially after things that happened after Shibuya. Like, there are some people that would just want out. Sure. So there are some people that would be like, well, participate. I don't have to deal with it anymore. But the fact of the matter is, once you put death on the line, people are going to be forced to participate, or they die. Oh, yes. Okay, I got you. Yeah, if the only downside was you lose your technique, some people, like, say if Nanami were still alive, he'd be like, all right, like, cool, like, I'll just sit around and do nothing. And the benefit of the 19 days passing is I lose my technique, I can just go be back to a normal person. But because you would die, the participation here refers to, killing other people. Yes. Okay. Thank you. That makes total sense now. Yeah. Thank you for describing that. Yes. It's what I'm here for.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's see here. We keep going. We talk about rule number 3. Non-players who enter, basically are declaring their participation. Let's see here. Do I have any thoughts on this? Not really, but at the bottom of page 6, Yuji does mention, he kind of has this like a side comment where he's like, oh, so that's the increase or decrease of barrier effectiveness that Ino mentioned, where Tengen is kind of talking about that people moving in and out of their own free will to trigger it kind of like impacts the strength of the barrier. I went back and tried to cross-reference what Yuji was talking about here, and the most I could find was Chapter 94. Ino talks a lot about how barriers work generally. And there's no one line that's like super standing out to me in Chapter 94 that's like, here's exactly what Yuji is referring to. But the whole chapter is them kind of talking about like trying to take down this barrier and what makes a strong barrier. And normally you'd have the person inside the barrier who's casting it because, it's a barrier trying to keep people out. But if you can let people in, some people, then it makes it, stronger or whatever, all this kind of stuff, right? So like, if anyone's curious about what Yuji's talking about there, I would recommend going back to read Chapter 94.
on top of that, so I'm thinking some of the explanation with it is that, like, since Tengen is saying that essentially you have one chance to exit with it, so it's saying that, like, if you're somebody that enters, let's say, by accident, you have a chance to leave. But if you were to step into one of these places again, you don't get a second chance.
Sure.
You came through twice.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that's some of it with it. Like, otherwise, like, I guess there's still... I'm guessing that I don't know. I don't know. Like, once, like, I don't know how often these games start, or like what even like because we still don't necessarily have. We don't have specifications on like how things have started or whatnot. Like, I'm assuming that things have started. Sure. But like, I don't know. It's just saying that you're participating, but it's not necessarily saying that there's like specific years or whatnot. Like, obviously, we know that there are specific colonies. Yeah. So maybe there's just based on those colonies, it's just like a given space or whatnot. But I think this definitely, we're going to need more clarification on this in the future, and I'm assuming that we'll get it. Yeah. Like, especially given how they've been very good so far with explaining barriers and whatnot in Jujutsu Kaisen up to this point. So I don't have any concerns with them flubbing it by any means. But yeah, this is definitely one of those ones where it's just like, it's still a little gray area. Yep. Could be anything.
Right. On page 6, near the top or whatever, like, Yuji does ask, his question to Tengen is like, about people who are already inside the barrier. So I do think this question you're getting at, where it's like, what if you accidentally entered the barrier as a civilian? Like, I think that will probably be hashed out. I could very easily imagine like a scene of just some random Joe Schmo like walking into the barrier and immediately getting like killed. You know what I mean? Like, some event triggers and then boom, like they just get immediately axed because like someone's trying to score a point or whatever, and that would immediately answer like that accidental crossing kind of scenario or whatever. But let's see, keeping going here, we get Rule 4 and 5 elaborated more. So Rule 4, players score points by ending the lives of other players, and 5, points are determined by the game master and indicate the value of a player's life. As a general rule, sorcerers are 5 points and non-sorcerers are 1 point. And they kind of like are going into, what is this game master, right? And then each player is going to receive this shikigami called a kogane, and we get this little cute dragonfly with a devil tail or a little skull face or whatever. I will say personally, this thing with the shikigami, this kogane, this is almost crossing the line for me to too much exposition. You know what I mean? Like, couldn't we have gotten this cute ass like skull dragonfly to like do more show than tell? Like, once they enter the thing, like they all enter the colony and poof poof poof, like, hi, I'm your Kogane, and we're gonna have fun playing.
Hey,
right?
Listen.
It would be really obvious.
Listen.
Yo, no, not Navi. hey, listen. Oh my god. But I don't know. Like, I do like the exposition in this chapter generally. Like, I like exposition in Jujutsu Kaisen and say like Hunter x Hunter a lot. But this is where I'm like, I feel like they don't need to tell us all of this. Like, show me a little bit when it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is definitely in the part of the chapter where it's just like, you wait to see that one guy that complains on Twitter. It's just like, I didn't read manga just so I had to read. Like, I don't like to read Hunter x Hunter. That's why I don't read Hunter x Hunter. It's I get it. Like, Jujutsu Kaisen up to this point hasn't necessarily been exposition heavy, right? But we're about to really get into it, so they need to nail down certain things that we've been having questions on, right? In regards to the rules 4 and 5, at least specifically 5 for now. Sure. The fact that people are given different point ratings, like. They're saying generally, you know, a sorcerer is worth 5 and anyone else is worth 1. Right. That's not to say, at least for me, hypothetically thinking that some people are actually going to be worth more points
Yep.
in the game.
Yep.
Whether or not like they already start out being worth more points, which I could definitely see that being the case for either Yuji or Yuta.
Yes, or Megami.
In all honesty,
maybe.
Or Megami, right? Yeah. But I'm also thinking that like as certain people progress in the game, I feel like certain people are going to be worth more points, almost like a bounty system.
Sure.
Because otherwise, like people are just going to stay away from the people that have all these points.
Right.
So. Whether or not that's already built in, or whether or not that becomes like, let's say, an additional rule,
sure,
in the future, I definitely feel like yes, for now we're being told, oh, like 5 and 1, but there's going to be more of a range.
Yep.
Once we actually get into it.
I totally agree, and it also calls to mind for me, like, do curses count? Right? Like, I feel like part of this whole game, right? The whole Brain Coon, turning, there was like the two groups, right? There's the group of people who were humans that now have a curse technique, and there's the people that like basically were awoken as, curses, right? Like half cursed, like kind of like Choso,
as
like
vessels,
or whatever, like cursed vessels. Like, will they be more points? And like, are curses in that bucket? If there was like a special grade curse, say if Mahito, say, were still alive, right? And Mahito came in here, would he be playing the game, or would he be like just an enemy to everyone and not even involved in the points? You know what I mean? So I think this also plays into how Yuji he's very worried, right? He's worried that he's going to need to kill people to get points to stay in the game, right? Because if he goes 19 days without having his score change, he's going to be killed or whatever, or curse removal or whatever that means. You know what I mean? In this case,
right? Probably
death. So I totally agree with you that like the point range is going to differ a little bit, and I'm thinking that there will be outs somehow to make it so that Yuji doesn't need to kill people, and of course like even Yuji killing people, like surely self-defense is okay, right? If someone came at him trying to kill him, like, I don't know, it's probably okay, you know what I mean? They're bad people, probably, you know what I mean? I don't know, like. Yeah.
Right. And Megami does go over this after they explain like Rule 8.
Yep.
But there's gotta be ways around it. Whether that means, pseudo death.
Sure.
Or what I'm more likely thinking, which they explain then once we get to Rule 6.
Right.
That you can add potentially a rule saying that like, you can still get a point if you knock somebody out or something. It's not contradicting the established rule of you get points for killing people.
Right.
It's just giving you extra point. It's just giving you another rule to get more points.
Yes. No, I love that.
So
I love that. Something like that for sure. Definitely. Let's see here. So yeah, Rule 6, excluding the point value of your own life. You can spend 100 points to make a new rule. That's great. I find it interesting. So I guess there's like, then going to Rule 7, mostly I'm interested in what Tengen says or whatever, or what people ask Tengen after 7 is. So 7, in accordance with the previous rule, the game master must accept any proposed new rule unless it has a marked and long-lasting effect on the game. And then Choso's like, is that fair? And then Maki's like, yeah, like it seems like the game master has a lot of leeway here. And I love Tengen's explanation where he's saying that like because Kenjaku, that's his name, right? The brain coup or whatever. Because Kenjaku has established so many very strict rules on the players, right? It's almost as if the players themselves get a boost in their power in the game, right? Because like it's almost like a binding vow to a degree, right? Where like they're forced to do all this stuff. So this Rule 7, Tengen is kind of saying like you can actually expect an equitable decision here. Because the players are subject to such strict rules. So Kenjaku can't really cheat here, right? Like he's already doing a lot, forcing people in these barriers, forcing people to probably die after a certain amount of time. So he's kind of exhausted all of his power over this game, and this rule actually probably will be very fair for the players. So I think that's really cool.
It's also implying too that like this does give them an equal chance with Kenjaku at this point. It's saying that like like he, like just like he can impose rules, so can you, and he doesn't necessarily have control over it per se at this point because of the scale of this technique. He has lost certain abilities that he would have had otherwise if he had made it a smaller technique.
Right.
So at this point, everyone is on equal grounds. If you get to 100 points and you are trying to establish a rule, there's a very good chance that you can make a rule and it will be fine, and Kenjaku can't interfere with that. Right. If he gets 100 points himself, he can establish new rules too, but everyone is on that same equal playing field of like, now everyone can do it. And the game master, for the most part, will accept anything as long as it does not conflict with an already established rule.
Right.
So
exactly.
It's just going to be, it's going to be so interesting to see what rules are established, what order these rules are established in, and who sets up these rules.
Yeah. When you were saying Kenjaku could participate, I didn't even think about Kenjaku even being in the game. I thought he was just going to be behind the scenes going, "Mwahaha, all according to Keikaku," you know what I mean? And like, but you're right, he could actually be in there killing people and getting tons of points, because why wouldn't he if he can, right? I love that. Yeah. And
speaking to my earlier theory too, of the fact that, like, especially if there's more of like a bounty system or whatnot in place, or let's say a rule gets created later on saying that if you kill a player that has X amount of points, you now get those points. He could totally pull another Mahito and be like, well, yeah. And it's like, haha. Yep. So, I mean, it's definitely, I would definitely say it's not beneath him to do any of those things. Like, for him to completely sideline himself and do nothing, that, like, I think that, like, in general, he is going to have a more laid-back approach to see how things unwind and whatnot, but he'll step in when he needs to in order to get certain things done. Right. He's not going to let certain people try and derail his plans, but he's not going to just be laid back. There's no way. Like, he, after everything that he did, like, for him to be completely hands off, it does not make sense. No, especially totally with how many times his hand has been in a cookie jar, or just completely lifting the cookie jar away from everybody's like grasp. No, he's not going to be completely out of it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so then we go into rule number 8. If the player's score remains the same for 19 days, then they're subject to that curse technique removal, and we already touched on that. Did you have anything else you want to talk about on rule number 8?
You're really curious what the significance of the 19 is. Oh, okay. In all honesty, like, I feel like there's got to be a reason why 19 was specifically chosen, because it was 19 days that you had from the start to join the calling games, and now it's 19 days that you have to change your score even by 1 point. Right. Which is another thing to consider, is that, like, somebody could totally get by in this game by just killing one person every 19 days, as it is. Definitely. But what... I feel like there's got to be some kind of cultural significance or something to this number 19, because otherwise, why pick 19?
It is very specific, right? Yeah.
Right. Why not pick like 20, 10, 7, something like that? So I'm really curious.
About prime numbers, where 19 is a prime number, 13 is also a prime number, and I feel like 13 is way more.
So is 17.
Yeah, so it's 17, but like, and I feel like 13 is way more aligned with, say, like occult, like, you know, October 31st, you know, sorcery, occult, superstition. 13 is unlucky in the United States or whatever, or, you know, Western world, I guess. So it's like, you raise a great question here, like, why 19? Like, what is it about 19 that, why pick that? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's really interesting.
But yeah, other than that, like, again, just the fact that, like, it is as many days as it is, like, there are totally people that could skate by for the 2 months it takes for this ritual to be complete, just by essentially killing
like 3 people maybe tops, or 4
3
tops?
people. Yeah, about 3 people.
Yeah.
Assuming that the culling game officially stops once the ritual takes place.
Right.
Which I would assume it does, but
yeah. I think it's a fair assumption. Yeah. So moving forward here, I definitely want to talk about something here with Maki here, right? So Maki is saying, all right, we know the state of the game. We all got our role to play. Yuki and Choso, you're gonna stay here and guard Tengen. That makes sense. Here's the interesting thing for me with Maki, right? So like, I'm gonna go to the Zenin clan and go and get some curse tools, right? Because after Gojo was sealed, the Kamo and Zenin clans took out all their shit from the Jujutsu High warehouse, right? I'm going to skip over the Megumi as the Zenin clan leader. We can talk about that. That's going to be huge, I think. But in terms of after that, Maki says, I would like, first, Master Tengen. Oh, yeah. Okay, I got you. You want into Juzo Kumiya's workshop. And Maki's like, yes, it would be appreciated. So I don't recognize this name at all. I don't recognize this at all. Do you recognize this?
I looked it up.
Oh, okay. So what is this?
It's Coat Rack Guy.
Oh! That guy,
yep.
Juzo Kumiya is Coat Rack Guy? Okay.
Coat Rack Guy. Yep. It's, I'm gonna make Gojo into the best coat rack ever. Yeah, she wants to specifically go to his workshop.
Sure.
So the thing to note with this is that he himself either was making or had access to X amount of cursed tools.
Yes.
He specifically gave Lucky Boy, I can't remember his name, but he gave him the handshake sword. So your guess is as good as mine. Yeah. I went as far as looking up Juzo's name rather than Lucky Boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, because the name came up, I was just like, this has got to be someone that we already know.
Right.
So I'm guessing she is thinking that he's got access to X amount of things, especially if they did end up further interrogating him from when he was captured.
Yes.
I'm very curious to see what other things that he had in stock with what was there.
So my take on this, right, and this is great to know that this is a specific person we've already met's workshop. But as you were saying, right, this dude's like a craftsman, right? He was going to try and make a coat rack out of Gojo, right? So this workshop, and as you said, he had several cursed tools. I get this vibe, right, based on Maki's new character and her dialogue here. She is burned, right? She has, burn damage from fighting Jogo, right? She's super strong. She has no curse technique. It's as if they're setting up Maki to be a blacksmith of cursed tools, right? She's is she saying I want access to this guy's workshop because I have a cursed tool in mind to make. I would like to make a cursed tool that I think would be badass as hell, right? And she just seems the type to be this gruff, I'm just gonna go in there and hit some metal, you know what I mean, and make some curse tools as a job, you know what I mean, going forward. I don't know, I'm just gonna vibe here. I'm just gonna vibe for sure.
If there was anyone that could do it, it would definitely be her, given her understanding of cursed tools so far. I could definitely agree with that. That is definitely a possibility.
Right.
It's just, again, given the fact that he liked to make things out of people, it's very possible that he had the parts, bones, whatever, of maybe other sorcerers of note that made for very strong cursed tools. So
right.
I'm very curious to see what's going to come of it.
Absolutely.
Again, the fact that we are specifically visiting his workshop, there had to have been something that came up in his interrogation or something that was just this place specifically is important for me to go to besides the Zenin storehouse.
Right.
So
Yeah, and the two things I thought of when you were saying that, right? One, assuming that this dude is killing other sorcerers like Gojo and trying to make various, household furniture out of people, right? Like, he has bits of people. Now, there was that scene against Ino, say, where that seance grandma gave the son a pill containing Toji's DNA to summon Toji, through whatever technique, right? So, like, What if they're trying to do something in that realm, like getting that DNA to do some sort of seance summon of someone who's dead? That's a possibility. Or the other one I was thinking, oh, geez, it just left my brain or whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? Something like that. You know what I mean? If I think about it, I'll come back or whatever. But yeah, like, there's definitely things related to people specifically that I think could come into play here. So I love what you're saying here, for sure. Yeah.
No, you bring up a good point. Like, it's interesting. What resources did he have access to, considering the fact that he was, like the granny and whatnot, a sorcerer that was willingly working with Kujaku. Kenjaku.
Yeah.
I was just like, do I say Getu? Do I say what? Kugimiya is like, but no, like, he was willingly working with them.
Yes.
Wanted to kill Gojo, but the fact of the matter was he was a sorcerer at the end of the day. So what do these sorcerers in line with the original Geto have access to at this workshop? So we'll see.
I remembered my second one. I remember our second one. So, and I have a very poor memory of the hidden inventory arc generally, right? Like, I've only read Jujutsu Kaisen once. I should really go back and reread it or whatever. But I remember that star plasma vessel, right? She died and wasn't her body taken by someone? Like, and I feel like we don't know where her body went. What if Juzo Kumiya wound up with that body if he's dealing in bodies, and if Tengen, obviously, like, she's dead, like, probably Tengen can't use her in any way now that she's dead, to stave off his evolution and stuff, but it could be related to that body, too. I don't know.
It is possible. He at this point in time, he can't
undo whatever's been done.
Undo the evolution. He can't get into another vessel, so like they're past that point. But
right.
Yeah, that's a good point. They could have her. We'll just have to wait and see.
That's wild. All right, now let's talk about Megumi is now the Zenin clan's leader. Like, how do you think that came to be? I assume it has to deal with that scene with Yuta healing Naoya, right? We're like, hey, yo, Naoya, like, you look like you're gonna die. You want me to heal you up or whatever? I feel like it just has to be related to that. Either Yuta, like, took something from him or, like, forced him, like, all right, you gotta step down. You know what I mean? I don't know why he would interject in Zenin clan politics, but that's like the thought I had. Do you have any thoughts of, like, how Megumi did this or whatever?
I honestly don't know. I don't even know, like, what how involved he actually is in it right now.
Right.
If I had to guess, there are probably other people within the Zenin clan that are, like, acting as, like, direct contacts with him, because now he is the only one, at least that we know of, has just, like, well, I want him dead so I can be the new head. So I'm interested to see what the family politics of it are. Yeah. Like, obviously, like, he's aware of it. Like, it's something that is just more bothersome than anything. So he's probably got, like, people that are, like, just constantly in contact with him or something in that regard. I don't know. I think it's going to be held off again until, like, they're probably in, like, a dire situation or something. Maybe, like, Megumi's in trouble and all of a sudden, hypothetically, we see, the two other, like, figurehead guys just drop in to come to protect him. The ones that we're discussing with Naoya when the original will was being discussed. So something's going to happen. Like, I don't know. There's so many what ifs, and obviously Naoya's the only one that we've seen with any kind of movement so far. So who knows? Sure.
Very mysterious. Very mysterious. All right. So moving on here. So Maki is going to go get Panda or whatever. Yuta's going to go right into a colony and take part in the game immediately. This guy, he's like, feels like he's thirsty for blood. He's just ready to kill people.
And then they have the funny scene where it's just like, oh, but we're supposed to be by each other, so in case something happens, I can kill him.
Yeah.
It's like, just go, you knuckleheads. We'll figure it out. If I die, then you can kill him after. No, we're supposed to make it so that you don't die.
Right. Yep.
Oh my god, these two adorable dweebs.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, and then we're gonna go find Hikari Kinji or whatever. Who apparently, according to Okotsu, he's moody, but when he gets worked up, is stronger than he is. So that's hinting to me that his curse technique must be around his emotions, right? Like it's just, at least that's like spoon fed to you almost through the page, right? Okotsu's like, he's moody, but when he gets really worked up, he's stronger than me, right? So like, I don't know, like it's gonna be crazy to see what Hikari can do. And how powerful he really is, because if he is anywhere near as strong as Yuta, that would be wild. I mean, Yuta's super strong.
Yeah. Fact of the matter is, this is the first time that we are getting an actual name drop in a side profile of a third-year student. First time. So I'm very curious to see how this guy fits into what got them suspended in the first place. The fact that he is the moody guy leads me to believe that he is probably the one in some shape or form that was the main cause for the third years being suspended in the first place.
Sure.
And yeah, you could be right in that, like, his powers could be tied to how emotion they are, right? Or it just could be that this is one of those guys that, like, he is like always at like a 1 or a 2 on like the emotional scale, and then like there's that one random thing that flips his switch and all of a sudden he's a 10, and he's just got a really strong curse technique, but he is normally in no way motivated to do anything. And which also could be the reason why like Maki is like warning him, is like it's gonna be whatever because the guy's moody. So
yeah.
I'm very curious to see how he and potentially the other third years fit into this. And this may be a bold prediction, but I mean, knowing me on this show, when do I not make bold predictions? That's kind of what I do. Not all of them land, but you know, it's what it is. I don't necessarily think that all the third years are going to end up on their side in this culling game. I question if all of them will. I question whether or not one or more of them will actually be on the other side or make things more challenging.
Damn.
We'll just have to see how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, obviously, we have no inclination about these third years other than the fact that they got suspended, and we didn't know about anything else about them up to this point. But yeah, I'm excited. I would love to see it if not all of them are on the same side. But you never know. Definitely.
The at least the fact that we don't know why Hikari was suspended in the first place, like that could be anything from he just punched a dude he really shouldn't have punched, or he like saved some people, but he did it in a really bad way. That could be anything from there all the way to he did something despicable and evil, and he was suspended because, well, there's only so many sorcerers. You really can't like exclude all of them. Maybe we'll take some time to like try and get him back on the team. You know what I mean? But really, he's evil in some way. Yeah. Like there's definitely a lot of leeway here to have Hikari be pretty much anything that we need him to be. For the narrative or whatever, or other third years or whatever, right? There was Miguel or whatever, and we don't really know much about Miguel either. I think.
Well, Miguel was one of the people. No, Miguel was one of the people with Ghetto in Volume 0.
Oh, Volume 0.
He was with them, and then like I guess he and Yuta started working together after the fact.
Sure.
He was with that group before.
Okay, but he was not a student. Okay,
so,
okay.
Not to my knowledge.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time since I read Volume 0. My memory's terrible. But yeah, all right. What do you got?
Other than that, too, we don't know what the third year's circumstances are with other people in relation to the culling game.
Yes.
There's no telling whether or not somebody has a similar situation to Megami, where they have somebody related to them or a friend or whatever that's been pulled into this.
Right.
So
when you have these colonies over like some of the 10 biggest cities in Japan or whatever, like there's a high likelihood that you could have that exact overlap that you're talking about. And great point. I definitely did not think about that. The last scene we have here with Tengen is Yuji turning around and going, Choso, yo, like, I appreciate it. And Choso being like, oh, don't die, right? And then he's like crying, he's like with his other hand, he's like covering his eyes and going, shoo, like, just leave me alone. I'm just trying to cry over my brother here. I love Choso. I think Choso is just a fantastic character.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's very multi-layered, so it's very interesting to see what's going to happen, especially the fact that he has been left behind with Tengen, so
right.
We'll have to wait and see.
Hell yeah. Then we have a scene change to an introduction of a new culling game player, and I get immense Hunter x Hunter vibes from this guy's introduction, right? I feel like Hunter does this a lot of showing just like a scene with this character, kind of like trying to show how are they as a person, right? And you see this scene that usually means almost nothing. I'm pretty sure we can easily disregard this entire scene of this boring crowd. He's a comedian. He tells bad jokes. He's yelled at by his boss. Pretty standard, got a bad boss in Japan, whatever kind of trope or whatever. And then like he maybe is a little unhinged or whatever in terms of how he views himself and how funny he is or whatever. Did you have any thoughts about this Fumihiko Takaba?
Yeah, so this got my chapter black engine revving, because it's just like, well, all right, Jujutsu Kaisen chapter black, let's go. Like this is it. Like when we were getting introduced to like certain people and their zone techniques and whatnot.
Right,
so, like,
right.
I'm ready for it, but there was one detail in particular, one that got me scratching my head and wondering, am I crazy? Is my theory? Is this another theory?
Sure, yeah.
Is this happening?
Ooh, hit me.
When he was talking at the very end,
okay,
and he changed when he was talking about 50-50.
Yeah.
But then changed it to 70-30.
Uh-huh.
Did this guy somehow inherit an ability similar to Nanamis?
Oh my god, 70-30. Oh my god. Yo.
Because, I mean, obviously we don't know what everybody's abilities are for the people that all of a sudden got cursed techniques. Yeah. But we do know that Nanami died.
Sure.
In the Shibuya incident arc. Who's to say that, certain sorcerers and whatnot weren't roadmaps for other people inheriting curse techniques? But the fact that he specifically said 70-30, like, come on.
Yo.
Come on.
Yo.
That was Nanami's whole thing. So, I'm very curious to see if he's going to have some kind of ability similar to Nanami's, given that specific thing. Because otherwise, he could have, thrown out any other kind of numbers.
Right.
But you're going to specifically give me, 7 and 3?
Yo. And as he's saying that, this is the last page on page 19 or whatever, right? Like, obviously the top left panel, very obvious, cursed energy kind of emanating from behind him or whatever. We get this zoot, 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 zoot kind of sound effects. And then that classic on the kind of middle left panel on the last page, that classic background of that hashing shading technique that's almost the definition of curse energy is being in play here, right? So oh man, I think you're definitely onto something, and that would be immense. What if Yuji saw someone using Nanami's technique? He would go absolutely apeshit. He would freak out, it would be amazing to read. You know what I mean? That's going to be huge. And if that is a thing, I feel I don't know. You heard it here first. I heard it here first. For the record, that's fantastic.
Let's see if one of my crackpot theories comes true, and it's this one. But again, because numbers have such a significance in Jujutsu Kaisen,
yes.
Again, the fact that we're not saying 50-50, but again, 70-30. And we had a whole character that was around those numbers and that premise. Like,
right.
I just feel like it's gonna happen.
Right. I'm with you.
And it's even like, in a way, a kind of a similar thing where it's just like, I mean, like, this person like is in a dead-endish job, right? But like, oh well, all of a sudden you have cursed power and like you can do this instead. But like, I want to see it. Now that I've said it, I want to see it. I want to see it happen. I want to see it happen in some capacity. Maybe not the exact same way, but I want to see it.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about with Jujutsu Kaisen this week?
Oh, man, no. I don't think I do, just because we already just
this has been
overload with, like, I mean, I'm going to say this with the other stuff that we had to cover for this week's episode. Thank God that not everything else is as exposition heavy as this one, because like, dear God, there's so much.
Yeah, we're almost at an hour-long conversation here for Jujutsu Kaisen, so I hope the Jujutsu fans out there appreciate this. I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation. All right, well, let us then get into Dr. Stone, Chapter 193, Our Stone World. And we start off our chapter here with Chelsea and Luna, and they're freaking the fuck out. And they've actually got revival fluid, which is really crazy, because and I'm happy to see this, because I was very worried that the only bottle of revival fluid we had around here was on top of that tower. So there is actually more, which tells me that they do have like a more easy out to revive everyone once someone, probably Suika, wakes up, right? Otherwise she'd have to like try and make it herself. But there's like a whole sack of them here. Anyway, it's just hilarious that like they have a chance to save themselves. They say like, we can just literally throw this thing in the air and just have it land on us and let's give it a try. And they fucking blow it. Oh my God.
And just immediately get washed over by the petrification beam. Yep. Yeah. Like literally like right after it happens, just hit by it.
Yep.
And that's the thing. Like, it's a perfect example of showing that like the timing on this is crazy. This isn't the same timing as what they had to deal with on Treasure Island. Right. This is not. No. Like, this is going like boom.
Yes.
Super fast.
Yes.
Like, absolutely crazy. Like, I feel bad. I get it. Like, they were like, let's have some comedy moments before the rest of the chapter is just emotionally draining.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But yeah, going into this next scene, I mean, like, sure, Zeno is like, well, yeah, this is very elegant. I love science, and even if science is petrifying me or whatever. Now, Stanley is I think the most interesting character in this chapter, and I'm sure you'd agree. But like, I cannot believe that Stanley is like. I guess it makes sense that Stanley is having these thoughts of like, either I don't shoot and we lose guaranteed, or I shoot and it's probably going to destroy all of humanity, but it's our only chance to win. So, and it's like, I'm like, why are you even considering this? This is batshit crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it goes to show that like he, above all else up to this point, he has believed in Zeno.
Yes,
like, he, at the end of the day, still can't trust anyone other than Zeno. So, like, it's that thing. Like, he, in this chapter, within minutes, not even necessarily minutes. I mean, like, we don't know how fast this petrification beam is going, but the fact that he is processing this all in this span of time, like, if I do this, I am potentially dooming humanity all over again, because there is no guarantee that they're going to come out of this alive a second time.
Right.
There's no guarantee, especially given the fact that it took
5,000 years. What was it? Right.
I thought it was like 1,600 years. I thought.
Oh no, it's way more than 3,000. I feel like I think at least 5,000.
Oh my God. Well, either way, the fact of the matter was there is no guarantee.
Yeah, that they'll ever come out.
Right, that they're going to be able to survive the Earth going around the sun that many more times, the wildlife and whatnot evolving to whatever point.
Yep.
There's no guarantee. And that's the thing. Like, there's that conundrum that is going through his head. And he is essentially deciding the fate of humanity here.
Yeah. Wild. We get a flashback with Zeno saying like he's standing over Senku's body or whatever. I mean, not as he's standing over Senku. Senku's alive. He's bleeding. He's very hurt or whatever. And then we get this little flashback on page 6-7 showing, and I did not know this. I guess I didn't put it together. I guess that Zeno and Stanley have been friends since they were kids. That's wild to me. Yeah, like I did not expect that.
In the same vein as Senku and Taiju.
Yes,
it's a mirror of the two.
Yep.
I mean, obviously Stanley is a lot cooler character compared to Taiju, but
maybe to you.
Same kind of vein. No, I'm not saying cooler as in like, oh, he's a cool guy. I mean, like, he's one of those guys that is emotionally stable compared to Taiju, who's just like, I am always at an 11.
Yes, definitely. Oh, man. And I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit because like I think this whole thing with Stanley is like really the main thing of the chapter for me. But going forward, right? Stanley is kind of thinking, Senku replies to Zeno and says like, you know what, like it might be a while, but eventually we will get revived or whatever, and when that happens, we'll see you again, right? Like until that day, see ya. And Stanley kind of thinks like, oh, damn, okay, right. I guess these guys would want Zeno alive. Like, so whenever they do get out of this, they will revive Zeno. And that's great. Stanley saying, I could lose this game, but Zeno will be revived and science will go on. And then he has this thought, this like super macabre thought or whatever, that I think very much shows that he doesn't fully understand how good Senku and all the squad is, right? But like he's saying on page 9, like, as for my statue, they will hold it hostage forever in exchange for Zeno's help. And I think that's like kind of like dire and bleak or whatever. But he then, on this same page, on page 9, right, he says like they're going to hold me hostage forever, literally forever. And then he has this thought, this flashback to looking at how Zeno is just enamored with this like model spaceship, and he's enamored with the idea of science. And he pulls the gun away. He throws off his armor and says like, you know what, like, nice work, kids. You fucking did it, because you put me in a position where I basically had to say like, no, I really should let you win because that means science wins. And what Zeno likes is science, and I like Zeno, so I will be a statue. I will let you win. Congratulations. As long as Zeno can keep doing science, that's fine with me. And I thought that was fucking beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, just to cap it off by being the coolest bastard ever by just lighting one final cigarette before being while being petrified. Like, dear God, the man is so cool. And it's
just interrupt you for 1 second. This is like a fucking Roronoa Zoro moment, right? Like Zoro against Mr. 3 on Little Garden, and he's like being petrified by the wax or whatever, and he's like, well, at least I'm gonna get in a good fucking pose, with my sword and shit, right? Like, so badass. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, but it is so true. I mean, a little bit more both facing death. Yeah, a little bit more. But it just goes to show that, like, at the end of the day, the person that Stanley cared about the most, the person he cared above himself, was Zeno.
Yes.
Like, as long as Zeno could make it to the future in some capacity, he was happy.
Yes.
And whether or not, these people could, get him back to where he was, just that love of science, not that, desire to rule above all and whatnot. That's what he's thinking in his head. And it's just... it's crazy to see. It's crazy to see that Zeno being, in a way, humbled by Senku's group and being like, you guys were the greediest ones of all.
Yes.
Not me.
That was a very interesting statement from Zeno where Senku is saying, like, we don't care about ruling the world. We just want to, what does he say? Like, instead of taking the world as it is for ourselves, we would rather craft the world of the future. And that's what gets me excited. And that is actually really interesting, right? Where Senku could try and keep the world going. He could try and revive everyone and put things back to how they were. And maybe even, as Zeno, I guess, wants to do, take it over and guide it into, where they think, as scientists, as very smart people, where they think humanity should go. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to direct humanity. And so kind of Zeno says, like, you're selfish, right? Because, like, we as geniuses, maybe we do have the obligation to lead humanity into a direction we think will actually save them. Where Senku's like, no, we just want to make cool shit, you know what I mean? And do what we want in terms of science, learn more science. I think that's very interesting to have Zeno have any moral footing in this conversation, you know what I mean? Given that he's the bad guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is just a badass moment.
Yeah.
In general.
Oh, yeah.
Just everything happening. It's just so good.
For sure.
It's so good.
We
and just the flamboyance of just Stanley like throwing off his coat too. Just,
I love that.
Oh my god.
Oh, so badass. I love that 10-11 page or whatever. Like, oh, just so good. So badass. Lighting up a cigarette with that statue is just fantastic.
And then we get to the depressing parts.
Super interesting that, like, over back in Japan, like they've practiced for this moment. They're quickly going into defensive positions, right? And Soyuz is kind of leading everyone. Wow, like that's so morbid and weird to practice. He's leading them on Treasure Island. Oh, right, specifically. Gotcha. Whereas everyone else, the same mentality though of getting into defensive positions so that you are less likely to be, broken or whatnot. Yeah, that's it's a good idea, right? I mean, like, because either there's the easy way of you're perfectly intact and the squad comes up with a whole barrel of revival fluid and we just revive you, easy, done. Or we need specialized, training, like say, was it Yuzuhira or whatever, like whatever, I forget her name, but like the gal who's very good at crafting, right? And she
this is like, Yuzuriha.
Yeah. And she can put you back together. But that is not guaranteed to work. You know what I mean? Like if you're missing a part of your neck, you're not going to be able to be revived. Like you could try, but it'd probably be very gruesome what happens. You know what I mean? So like you need to have all your pieces intact, and assuming a defensive position to make it less likely to break is just a fantastic idea. And then so depressing after this.
It's a matter of stability too.
Yes.
Like you do not want to be standing up in fear of getting knocked over or whatnot. If you are on all fours, if you're on all four, you are more stable as a whole. Yes. So like you are less likely to move and whatnot if you are in that kind of position. So yeah. Awesome. But and then we just see a shot of the world and the moon. No sign of the satellite from the spin-off manga, but just the world and the moon. And then it's the doggy all by himself, and he's so sad. And then there's a boar, and the dog is like, oh my god, I'm so happy to see even a boar. And then they run around. And, oh my god, they are two specific characters. That's Chalk the dog and Sagara the boar. They are named characters. Okay, I've completely forgotten about these characters. I guess I wasn't really. No, I knew about them, and I also remember because I believe both of them ranked within the top 25 of the last Dr. Stone popularity poll. So I knew. I remember. Well, I shouldn't say I remember their names. I remember that they had names, and then I went over to the wiki to remember what they were. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that. That's awesome. But there is a very, very important detail on page 15. Tell me. So the fact of the matter is, again, the petrification beam happened during the day, as we are seeing. But in the Kingdom of Science, at the top of their tower, the fact that there is a bright light happening at night, there is activity happening. There is something happening back in Japan. And I think that once we get to chapter 194, we are going to be seeing the people in Japan again. Because why else would the top of like the Kingdom of Science be lighting up like that at night? Sure. If there wasn't activity happening. Somebody, at least one person, is back up and running, back in the Kingdom of Science in Japan.
Damn.
There's somebody there. There's no other reason why they would specifically show that at night, after the petrification beam and whatnot has happened, something is happening, someone is there, somebody knew what to do through it, and it might have been through radio waves or something back in Japan, but somebody knew, and somebody is up and running again.
Damn.
And I'm very curious to see who it is.
Shoot, that's wild. That's crazy. Yeah, that's gonna be a huge spot if that happens next chapter for sure. And then we go to this beautiful page 16, page 17, where we get the title of the chapter very late in the chapter. On that day, every human on Earth turned to stone. This is obviously a throwback to chapter 1, where chapter 1's title was Stone World. And here we have our Stone World, which to me is like a very dark kind of like, it's our Stone World because we, the good guys, are the people who petrified the entire planet over again. And that's pretty wild. Damn.
Yep. And then immediately after that,
but it's like, however,
it's like this time around they knew that like this would only be, a temporary thing,
right?
And after this, we see the passing of time.
Yes. We see
which,
like a spring,
again,
a summer, an autumn, a winter, a spring, a winter, a spring. Like, it's like, damn, this some years. Shit.
Yeah. And which again leads me to believe that we are going back to the people in Japan first.
Sure.
And that the people in Japan are going to be probably having to do something. Mm-hmm. Something is going on. Because otherwise, if Suika or somebody in South America did revive, I really doubt they would have shown the passing of seasons like that, unless like all of a sudden Dr. Stone is just like, haha, psych, it's a time skip right before we end things. I doubt it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, again, we're going to get the people of Japan. Because, again, the vast majority of the people that did know what they were doing, the craftsmen, et cetera, and the smart people all went off to the other side of the world. It's going to take them a longer amount of time to get enough people up and running to potentially make another boat and make other things happen again.
Right.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't think, again, just because they showed the passing of seasons that they did, I don't think that we're going to get necessarily somebody in South America up and running right away. Sure. I don't think that we are. But I could be wrong. We'll see.
Right.
It's just based on the context clues, that's what I think is going to be happening. But it's just the fact that they're just showing the very determined Chalk and Sagara afterwards, just like, oh yeah, we're determined, and there's light shining down from above, and just like, I don't know. I never expected this to be. I never expected Dr. Stone to pull off a reset like this. Yes. Like this, I don't think anybody saw this coming, and it just goes to show that like the Dr. Stone hype this year has been insane. Oh yeah, absolutely insane. Oh yeah. Like I know at the beginning of the podcast I mentioned, like with the jump data that I was looking into, Jujutsu Kaisen was at the top of things.
Sure.
Dr. Stone was actually tied with One Piece in terms of the number of covers / top 3 / color pages that it had.
Damn.
So a lot of attention has been put on Dr. Stone within this first part of the year.
Yeah.
And for good reason. It's been crazy.
It's been so good. So good.
And I guess it will also be interesting to note, it completely slipped my mind until thinking about it mid-talk. Once they get unpetrified again, if it's within, a certain amount of time, Senku's lines and all the other Americans are going to be gone. The ones on their body. Because once you've been petrified a second time and come out of it, those lines are gone. So once Zeno is revived, he's no longer going to have the giant X mark across his face, and Senku's eye lines are going to be gone. And
sure. So is it that you only get the lines if you break out naturally, but if you break out through the revival fluid, but why would they lose their lines, or is that just a second time?
So it's the second time. So
sure.
the first, like, once you come out of the rocks from the first time, like from the initial petrification, just because the amount of time that the stone has weathered and decayed over time, that's what causes the lines on the body. Now, because they were petrified a second time and then came out of it, as we saw with like certain people like Gen and Ryusui, those lines went away because your body was in a better state and was re-healed, and like the stone layering on top of you wasn't as weathered.
Sure.
And then they only put on the lines because Senku still had his lines, and they were like, it's a sign of our solidarity together.
Oh, right. That is true that they put on fake lines to blend in when they, that's totally, I totally did not remember that.
Not to blend in, but again, the sign of solidarity of like, we'll erase these lines once we have finally depetrified everybody. But once Senku's revived, unless they're like, let's do it again.
Why not?
I don't know that they will. I mean, obviously, again, with Zeno, the fact that like the giant X across his head is going to be gone, I don't know that he's going to be like, Simba.
Yeah.
Like, I doubt it, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
For sure. The only thing I had left to say about this chapter was that now your point about page 15 with the light, in the tower in Japan or whatever, it definitely makes me reconsider. But this last page of the chapter with the dog and the boar, I forget their names as you said them or whatever, but like
Chalk and Cigar.
I really hope that they are the main characters of at least part of the next chapter. I really want a chapter centered on them, like trying to help out or something, or like, try and revive people or something, and just be a little cute chapter. But if you were saying that, like, if there's already people awake, then they wouldn't, need to do that. But I just hope to see more of these two because they're cute as hell.
I just noticed an important detail that I completely missed until right now.
Tell me.
They aged. You can actually see, again, if you go between page 14, 15, and then go to 19.
He's a baby boy at 14, 15. He's a smart young lad on page 19. That's amazing.
Yeah, I completely, again, showing that time has passed. Time has legitimately passed.
Fantastic spot. That's wonderful.
I completely did not even frickin' notice that until now.
Yeah,
because I was just looking at Chalk the dog, and I was just like, I mean, that's not much of a change. But then I looked more so at Sagara, and I was just like, Sagara got a lot wilder there.
He got tusks. I mean, shoot, like even he has tusks in the beginning, but I guess not on page.
It's more so like the not necessarily a mane,
the furriness, and the other. He looks more a little more gruff and like fuzzy or whatever than as a cutie.
And this, I don't know if this is me reaching or not with this, but the fact of the matter is they also still have the rope collars around their necks, despite again time having passed, which leads me once again to believe that Japan has reestablished itself again after this, and that they maintain having the rope collars.
Otherwise, wouldn't it otherwise eventually, or fall off or something?
Or broken off or something.
Yep. Damn, son. Nice spots.
Turning on my Detective Schnooty eyes mid podcast.
Nice. Did you have anything more for Dr. Stone?
No, I am just very excited to see what happens in chapter 194. The world is quite literally watching to see what happens next. And I think if I had to guess, chapter 194 is either going to be showing us just directly after the time skip, or they're going to show us what happened in that time skip. Or they'll wait until like a little bit later, but like we're getting something
for sure.
And I guess I'm interested too. I'm imagining then, at least for some characters, especially if they got to live there for like a year or whatever, and we'll get to see some character designs change.
Sure.
Obviously not the people that went to America and South America. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
They're not going to change, but yeah, interesting to see what happened.
Hell yeah.
So
awesome. Well, I think that'll do it for Dr. Stone then. All right, moving on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 59. Mash Burn Dead and the Magical Maestro. We got a nice color cover page here, like the purple on Margaret's lips here.
Yep, purple. In no way pink from a previous take or anything. No, it's always been purple.
That's never happened. Never had to mix up colors in my life.
Yeah. So at first I was just like, oh, this is just a really basic color page. I mean, because it is, in all honesty, it's just two profiles of Mash and Macaron. I think this is the first time, though, that we're actually seeing the dorm colors for the Orca dorm, which is interesting that we've got, like, I mean, I was obviously expecting purple, which we get with the tie, but the fact that we've got, like, a moss green kind of for the robe, wasn't expecting that. But and then you got like just those icy blue eyes that Macaron has, like I guess I was expecting more color with the hair, but I guess it's just normal shaved head with just lines in it. But yeah, it's interesting to see that is the Orca dorm colors. Again, not what I was expecting, but it's all right.
Yeah. It's interesting, like, now that you say that, like, it's kind of like purple and green, kind of like Unit 1 and Evangelion or whatever. Like, purple and green, they definitely mesh or whatever, or whatever. So, yeah, it looks good. Obviously, like, the Aster dorm, Adler dorm is obviously the
black and the red
Gryffindor or whatever kind of thing. But yeah, going into
I can't remember with the third dorm, did they ever have a color page showing off their robes? Because I can't remember. They could have, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I definitely
don't remember, and yeah, like, I can't remember, like, in terms of, like, comparing it to the Hogwarts schools or even anything, right? So, like, I feel like Abel had a white robe, but I don't know if that was just the manga, coloring something light in color white, or if it actually was, white, or even if he had the same robe as his companions or whatever. I want to say white, but I don't really know. Going into the chapter, we Margaret just opens straight up with sounds fa, and I love the art of the kind of sonic shockwaves that are happening on page 3, and like Mash like punching through it on the bottom of page 3, just so crisp. So it looks so good.
And I guess I was wrong. This is not the first time that we saw the Orca colors. There was one color page previously showing off one of the Divine Visionaries.
Oh, sure.
But that being said, it looks like you are correct that like white was the color for the other dorm.
Lang.
Right, but it was they just showed the robe, but it was for the guy with like the evil eye because they had the mask. But
sure.
No, this the fighting right away is just so good, and I love the music aesthetics that Macaron has with his various techniques. The fact that like with Soundsfa, we get like the sheets of music that are coming out almost like rolls of film. Just visually is very appealing.
Especially on page like 4, where like they're kind of like translucent and like this shockwave is going past Mash, and just like it looks fantastic. And this page 4 where then the shockwave is like rippling past Mash and like ruffling his clothes, and then boom, like his eardrums pop from the just volume of the sound or whatever. Incredible.
Which it just goes to show that like while you are visually seeing something, this is not an actual physical attack.
Right.
Which really makes this Mash's biggest enemy so far, because everything up to this point has been something tangible for him to punch.
Yeah.
Which again is the first instinct that he had, is that like, oh, I am visually seeing this attack coming my way. Punch it like I've punched every other magical thing up to this point. Nope. Doesn't work that way.
Right.
And then he just gets his freaking eardrums ruptured and just ow.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The fact, oh my god, I did laugh on page frickin' 5 where he's just like, he literally says, say that again, and it's just like
blood out of his ears.
Blood, yeah, it's just like, yeah, no, he literally can't hear, so he's just like, say that again.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I cracked up when just after that or whatever, right, where Mash continues to try and block these attacks and realizes, he can't, do that or whatever. And Margaret is like, I should have expected to be let down. Still, how sad. You weren't the tartar sauce I was seeking. It's like, okay, yep. That's one way to put that, I guess. Sure.
Which I know from like the last chapter that he was just like, I love tartar sauce and shrimp just makes tartar sauce better. And I'm just like, wait, so he wanted Mash to be his tartar sauce? Like he didn't want Mash to be like the accompaniment to his tartar sauce. He wanted Mash to be the tartar sauce. Like
sure.
What? Okay, I love it. I love Margaret's weird fascination with tartar sauce, but like that was a weird thing. I thought that like Margaret himself was like the tartar sauce, and he wanted Mash to be the thing that made him the tartar sauce better. But no, he wanted Mash to be the tartar. I don't get it. But it was great. I'll say that.
I would hope at least Margaret knows what he's talking about or whatever.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yes. Then we move into sounds surround orchestra, and this thing is drawn so good, at least on the top of page 8 or whatever, like just the detail of these like megaphones or whatever. Wow.
The giant phonograph with like the extra speakers at their bases forming a circle around, and then the musical notes on top of it's, oh my god, it looks so good. I just loved, again, another great aesthetic to Macaron's magic so far. It's been great. Like the fact that like I'm guessing like these again, it's more so just a physical illusion.
Sure.
But like it's actual, like again, the sound is the important part of it. Because again, to just physically create matter like that and then just for it to poof away. Right. No, I'm guessing it's just like, this is the visual representation for what happens, but it looks so damn good.
Yes. Yeah, you do raise an interesting question, like, if Mash was quick thinking enough, in this case, could he have kicked over those phonographs? Like, just kicked them over so they pointed up, say, and away from him? But at least based on the previous attack, Sounds Fa, he tried to punch through those paper music sheets or whatever, and it just didn't do anything. So I think we can probably assume that, this is like a kind of a more of a visual representation of what the attack is going to do, as you were saying. So probably nothing he could have done, but there is something he could have done: dig underground at the speed of sound or whatever. And I think it's really interesting that
oh my god,
Finn yet again,
as usual,
Finn again sees what happens and like, damn, this kid's got good eyes. I don't know what he's doing.
Oh my god, the fact that it's again always Finn is just like, I saw it, I saw everything, I always see everything. So, while I might not have looked up the information on the colonies of Japan, I did look up the information about the speed of sound.
Oh, nice.
Dear Lord.
A little quick?
So, you don't know the half of it. Okay, so, according to Wikipedia, in ideal conditions, so like 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, sound travels through the air at 343 meters per second.
Oh.
Per second.
So easily across the entire battlefield in less than a second, for sure.
Yeah, so In terms of a per hour kind of thing, for the people that use the metric system, that's 1,235 kilometers per hour.
Oh.
And for those of us that use American distance, 767 miles per hour. MASH didn't run at 767 miles per hour. He dug through the freaking earth.
Seriously.
Faster than 767 miles per hour.
Can Senior Pink even swim through the ground that fast? I don't think so.
No.
And his ability is literally doing this easier than digging.
Yeah, or frickin' Sekko from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5. No, MASH, he literally did a Puri Puri Prisoner.
Yeah.
But faster than the speed of sound. Mm-hmm. And that is absurd. And I get it. Yeah. We're used to absurdities in Mashle. But to dig through the earth, hypothetically, at 800 miles per hour just to outrace the speed of sound is absurd.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And then while he's down there, he pulls Margaret through the ground just ever so neatly, which is just hilarious and amazing. And I love that he just immediately drop kicks this dude in the head who's in the ground. Guillotine kick. Oh my god. Oh, jeez.
And then just proceeds from there to just pound him, just as fast as he can. And, everybody's just like, wow, he's going, crazy on him. And then, the divine visionary that he faced is just like, no, this is instinct. He realizes that he needs to do this while he can before shit gets real, and then it does.
Yes. Now, as we get in here to this end of the chapter where Margaret is going to show you what he's capable of, and he does sounds metamorphosis, Here, I don't know if you noticed this, but now the sound waves are black as opposed to the white of early in the chapter. So this is telling me he literally is a third line. Boom, open up the third line, black magic, just like Rain when he did the third line and his magic was black. He very well either already was a third line and he just unlocked it, or he awoke to it in this moment, fueled by the fight with MASH. And I'm hoping he is a third line, because that would be huge for this battle.
Well, it was already implied that he would have become the divine visionary in the last round over Finn's brother had he not decided, I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
so we already know that he is of this level. Whether or not he does have a third line, he is as strong as a lot of the other third liners. And so, we are definitely going to be seeing this. Given Macaron's character, I definitely think that it is safe to say that we are going to be seeing an outfit change on top of the strength.
Sure.
So I'm leaning towards either him getting more of a conductor outfit once he comes out of this metamorphosis, or if we're going the more butterfly route, he's going to have something butterfly-like, or maybe it's both.
Sure.
Who knows? Sure. But either way, he's going to come out of this, I'm thinking, dressed up way more flamboyantly. And if he is going to be showing his third line once this comes through, then we'll be seeing his wand also changing. So I'm very curious to see how that looks.
Right.
Because, as it is, when you're a standard conductor, every conductor that has a baton, it's very simple. So, he's been more of a conductor up to this point, but is it going to take on a more interesting look? Is it going to take on more of an instrument look?
Right.
Or something up to this point? Is his wand gonna turn into a freaking guitar or something?
Yes.
Once we come out of this, it could be anything, but I just given his character, there's no way that he comes out of this just looking the same.
Yes.
After casting this spell, no way. Not given his character.
Totally agree with that.
No.
Totally agree with that. Did you have anything else for Mashle this week?
I'm very curious to see how Mash comes out of this one. Because digging through the ground is not going to work for him a second time.
Right.
Because sound does travel through solid objects and whatnot. It's very possible that, like, if he tried doing it again, Macaron could easily just cause, like, a quake in the ground using sound, especially if he's going up a power level here.
Yep.
So I'm very curious to see how Mash overcomes this. Again, sound is his biggest weakness so far because it's not a tangible thing for him to punch.
Right.
And unless Macaron gives him an opening for him to exploit or whatnot, all he has to do is, conjure up his magic, and that's all he needs.
Right.
Especially given the fact that he has the ability to create a magic that completely encompasses an entire area around him. Like, I'm very curious as to what's going to happen. I think he's going to do something with his wand again. Like, he's going to mold it using his super strength to do something again. That's... is his wand going to get turned into earmuffs? Is he going to mold his currently tennis racket wand into earmuffs? Like,
I really hope so, because if he does, I mean, I guess to a degree, if he was able to do that and completely avoid all of Margaret's attacks from now on, that would be a little too much, I think. Like, that shouldn't be an insta-win just not hearing it, because the sound waves can still crack the ground, it can still hurt his body, you know what I mean? But will he use earmuffs as a way to just be able to fight back a little bit? You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe. That's a crazy idea.
Maybe. I mean, again, thinking about it more, again, the fact that, like, yes, it can reverberate, especially it's lead or whatever it is. It's just a solid metal. So, like, yes, it's very clear that can be reverberated through. I mean, like, there are... instead of headphones, you can get, like, these, like, band things that just, like, vibrate and, like, through bone conduction cause sound. So, like, that would be, like, the simplest thing for him to do would be to be, like, earmuffs, and it's like, yeah, this is my solution, but I'm very curious to see how this plays out. Right. Because this is not this guy is stronger than everybody that he's faced so far. Right. Period.
Right. And I wonder if this is where Innocent Zero interrupts, right? Like, will we even see the end of this battle? Will Innocent Zero come into play? And what if Innocent Zero is so strong compared to Margaret that we, like, see, like, damn, Margaret is, like, super, super, super powerful. And then here's Innocent Zero even higher, just wipes the floor with Margaret, say, kidnaps Mash. I don't know. Like, I totally agree with you that it's difficult for me to imagine how Mash can get out of this one unscathed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You bring up a good point with Innocent Zero. I think if I had to guess, though, just so it's not just a Mash just winning all the time kind of fest, I think they'll make an appearance once Mash and Margaret's battle completes. Sure. Because at that point, then they're both in a weakened state because they fought against each other. Sure. For them to get interrupted mid-fight, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it would downplay it, and it's not like Mashle is at the same level of Build King where it has to rely on the same trope of evil force just, interrupting mid whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're coming. I get it. We're getting that plot trope, but yeah. Rest in pepperoni's Build King. I'd say I miss you, but I don't.
That's awesome. All right, well, you good with Mashle then?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, getting into Black Clover, chapter 290, the highest versus the lowest. And we start off with Asta has just hit the Biju bomb back at the Supreme Devils or whatever. And yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so oh man, this chapter is just high octane Black Clover goodness.
Yes.
You question, like, all right, how is Asta going to be able to take on this giant sphere of magical power? And then he does it. But oh my god, it was so satisfying for several reasons. But first, we find out that, like, he can actually physically see his self-imposed timer for the Devil Union.
Yep.
The fact that, like, on his chest plate, the 5-leaf clover, every time a leaf pops up, another minute has passed, and once the 5th leaf pops up, then it is donezo. I'm surprised it's not the other way around.
Oh, sure.
That, like, the clover leaves go away. But I really like that is how it's been tied into its design.
Yep.
But dear God, I'm so thankful that once we get to the double page spread with pages 2 and 3, he finally pulls out the Demon Dweller sword.
Yes.
Because this is the sword I always want him to make more use of. The Demon Dweller sword is his one long-range sword, which he almost never uses.
Yep.
And, like, he finally pulls it out, and he's, like, actually has mastery over it.
Right.
Thank God. Well, I mean, he has mastered all of his swords over the course of 6 months, but you watch him use the Demon Dweller sword, and he just launches the anti-magic attacks at the sphere of magic, and he carves it out.
Yep.
He carves into the magic sphere and just flies right on through it. It's
so good.
It's so good.
So good. And he's flying through it. He's getting bombarded by fire and ice attacks back and forth every which way. He's dodging them. Then he pulls out sword number 3, Demon Destroyer, and just dispels all of the magic in the area. It's just him and the Supreme Devil or whatever. I mean, like, yeah, this, as you say, just pure high octane, just like a really, really sick battle for sure.
Oh, and I completely even forgot to mention, we get to, with the Demon Dweller sword, we get to see the process of it getting coded in his anti-magic for his Devil Union form, where we get to see that the hilt is changed up, and then obviously it's just fully black. But I really like that the fact that we are seeing that process of it being coded once it's getting pulled out of the grimoire, because I've really enjoyed getting to see his various swords in his Demon Union form, which makes me very excited for once we see Yami's katana. I really want to see how and why it, like, changes in certain ways, so I'm very excited. But
for sure,
details like this I love. And yes, pulling out the Demon Destroyer, which I think the Demon Destroyer, I actually like that design, I think, the most. Weirdly enough, like, I really love cool, like the negative space with the hilt. Just so good. So good.
And then we get a nice little internal monologue from Liba, kind of saying, like, man, I can't believe, like, I'm the weakest baby in all the land, and I'm fighting these Supreme Devils. And then we get the flashback to Asta being like, thanks, man, like, you've been one helping me this whole time. And he's like, no, that's my line, you baka.
Like, you were the one thanking me, but in the end, I can't thank you enough, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to bring out the abilities and whatnot that we are having in this moment. Like, never in my life would I imagine that I'd be able to get back at these devils that have been, targeting me for my entire life. Which I'm very curious to see whether or not we actually get to see some of those other devils within the next few chapters or whatnot.
Sure.
just given that some of them do have very interesting designs. Obviously, the twins were at the very top, like they were like the height of them. But again, very interesting designs. Not all of them being like humanoid ones, right? Which we were seeing earlier, like some of the more grunt-like ones that didn't necessarily look like humanoid were coming out. But and then the fused twins are like, this isn't entertaining anymore. Yeah. Like, what? Why isn't this entertaining? I don't like this feeling. What is this feeling? Yeah. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, and then it's like Leave saying like, oh, this is fear. So you badass. Are fearing us right now, and so like, oh badass. My god! I love, like, where you're saying like it makes total sense that you would never know this feeling. You are the highest level devils, and like no one's a threat to you. There's no way you'd understand that this feeling is fear. It's like, oh, it's so sick. Well, in your level, anyway, you're at the top of your level, so like you don't bother with like the other ones. You're at the top, right? Like, everyone is below you. No one has ever posed a threat to you before. So you've been living this life that's been so easy. Like you've had nothing to fear before. But now the thing that you scorned the most is now instilling that fear in you. Yes. It's a beautiful, beautiful full circle moment there for sure. Let's see here. Asta is almost running out. He's got 1 minute left. And then kind of the devil realizes that. Yeah, the devil had that moment where like it saw the Asta's chess piece before, and then it remembered when Asta initially came in to save Noct, like him freaking out. It was like, minute's already been gone. So this devil is just like, oh, I just have to run out the clock. Yeah. As long as I run out the clock, this guy is no longer a threat. His power will go away and I'll be fine. So just run away because I'm far enough at the moment. So, and like, he can't catch up to me. And then it's just like, oh no, I can't catch up. And then the devil is just like, ha ha ha, I'm getting away and there's nothing you can do about it. And then it's just like, ha ha, psych. Noct time, baby. Yep. Noct comes in. He's still a bloody freaking mess. Yeah. But he uses, even in this state, he's able to use his freaking devil union to just suppress this devil and just, reveling in the irony of the moment. Yes. It's just like, yeah, you're getting beat by the lowest of the low, you high-ranking bastard. Right. This guy who's been, overseeing everyone and being a dictator over everyone using his magical power. Now his magical power is completely useless. And furthermore, someone who has no magical power is actually the one beating him. It's like, this guy never thought that this would ever happen. You know what I mean? Wild. Yep. And then we get the slice in half. Shabam! Like, oh, not a slice in half. A slice in fourths. Because he's using two swords at the same time in like an X cross fashion. And the only reason why I even realize this is because immediately after, when they separate, each of them is carrying a sword in one hand. Yo, nice spot. I totally did not see that. It's even hard for me to see. Can we see the slashes on 1415 on the big panel? Is one kind of going left to right, or is that just like energy lightning out? So you can, it's through the midsection. You can see that there's a bit of a gap in like the stomach, and like you can see, so you can see the line on page on the double spread of page 1415. The midsection line is a bit thicker compared to the thin line going down. Through like the top. So, but I mean, that being said, at the same time too, like Asta's not going to do like a cross motion if he's only using one sword in that moment. Right. But yeah, it's definitely on page 16, the devil is in multiple pieces. Definitely as if it was cut through the middle up and down, and also through the middle left to right. Its arms are in two pieces. Its body is kind of like
breaking apart or whatever. So yeah, great spot. I thought it was just one slash right up and down the middle.
And I just realized too, so when he called out what sword was it? The Demon Destroyer sword, like the Demon Destroyer sword was always in his left hand, and then the Demon Dweller was in his right hand. So like looking at the details, you can actually see leading up to these pages that he's got both swords in his hand.
Sure.
Like he never swapped them out. He just brought out a second one.
Sure.
But yeah, and then once the Devil Union form ends, then the swords go back to their normal, like, decayed state, non-Devil Union forms.
Right.
But no, it's just great. And not to mention another detail I love with this, the fact that, again, that like each one of them is carrying a sword. Specifically, Asta is carrying one sword with his left hand, and Lieb is carrying one sword with his right hand.
Yes.
The right hand that he took from Asta. So, like,
I
love...
good one!
Like, I just... The detail work with this was just fantastic.
Yeah.
From start to finish, and just... so good.
And a nice little
so good.
Nice little wrist, forearm bump between these two brothers, essentially, and just celebrating their victory. Do you think that this devil is out of here? Do you think this devil's dead?
Oh, man. That is a very good question. Because, so, like, I think specifically the reason why they cut it into fourths rather than just in halves was because at the start, they were two halves that fused together. So if you just split it down in half, like, we're back into two again. But the fact that they were cut down the midsection, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Like, I'd like to say that it is going to be dead. But you never know. I think we might get certain words in, like, its death thralls.
Oh, sure.
But I think just given the build-up that we've seen, I want to say that, yes, it will be dead. But we've got major implications here with these first two devils. Which I'll get into, but if you have anything to say first,
get in there.
By all means. Okay, so fact of the matter is, these devils were, again, from level 1.
Yes.
First level. There are 7 levels that the Tree of Qliphoth is trying to access into the human world. And as it was, Asta, at least up to this point, was the only one that could finish off this devil.
Right.
And even then, it was technically a challenge because granted the fact that, like, he had to even get there while he was in Devil Union form. So it's not like he even had all 5 minutes to face it.
Right.
And yes, maybe the time will get extended later on, but I mean, at the same time, why would you mess with something that works so well when it has a 5-leaf clover design? To just throw that away right away would be really dumb. So I don't want that to happen. But Asta was the only one that was able to put up a legitimate fight against these demons. Not even Noct, who has 4 different devil contracts, could even put like a freaking scratch on this thing.
Yeah.
Not to mention everyone is already having just a hell of a time. Well, at least the ones that initially went in are having a hell of a time facing off against the Dark Triad that have gotten a devil boost thanks to the ritual having already started. So it is going to be a long and difficult road ahead of them. There is going to be a lot of tag outs so they can get through the various rosters of magic users in order to fight these things. But like, I I'm very curious to see how the pacing unfolds at this point. Because the fact of the matter is, like, we're like all in, all chips are on the table. Like almost everybody and their grandma at this point is in the Spade Kingdom fighting again as the first part of the ritual has unfolded.
Right.
Like, how are we going to navigate through these other 6 parts, especially given that a lot of people are already injured? Yes, the reserves are coming through. Like last chapter, we finally saw Magna and Zora show up, and I was like, I've been waiting for you two for so long. But like, I legitimately am just like, oh man, we already had a lot of problems to the Dark Triad and these 2 demons from the first level. It's gonna be a wild ride, and I'm very curious as to what the pacing's gonna be like. This is very different compared to the Elf Invasion arc, where there were certain steps, but they had to get from point A to point B and then to point C, and then developments happened and point C changed from point C to point 3 when things got flipped on its head.
Sure.
Compared to now, where we're on more of a timetable.
Yes.
In comparison, which is very, very different in comparison. So I
definitely don't think, it's hard to imagine that they'll get to the bottom, you know what I mean? Because like, as you say, like these 2 leaders of the first level were already so strong that it seems like no one else would be able to even be in play here besides Asta. And so going deeper, it's like, wouldn't they get stronger? And then it just seems like more and more unlikely that anyone's going to be able to do anything, including Asta, right? Like if he took 4 minutes or whatever to beat this one, clearly he needs all the time he can get, right? So as you say, it'll be very interesting to see how this unfolds, because the power scaling and how if that's going to be something that makes sense or is somehow, broken, you know what I mean? As we go deeper into these levels, and like, will the kind of the goal or the thing they're trying to do change? Like, should they just go immediately to Morris and just kill Morris and stop the ritual? And can they even do that? How strong is Morris given his devil union contract or whatever, like Dante and the rest of them? And of course, Yuno is like, where's Yuno? Obviously, Yuno is going to be a big part of this arc, being, the inheritor of the Spade Kingdom or whatever prince.
He's over there being loved by Mana.
Yes. But will just over there. Will the Mana loving him let him beat a devil? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, like he was already winning prior to the ritual being started. And then Bone Boy being like, ha ha, I am healed. Right. So like, who knows? Again, that's why I'm like, oh man, like, what kind of phases are we gonna be in? On top of that, too, location wise, like, we're already in a location, and this is supposedly the location where the ritual is happening, but how are things going to change in that regard too? Because staying in one location for X amount of time can become stale. Right, so like, I think it's very possible even that like once this ritual starts, it's very possible that Yami and Vengeance could be getting pulled down level by level. Oh, and by level,
to fight in the underworld. Oh, dang.
Possibly.
That would spice it up. That would spice it up quite a bit.
Right, and that would allow for the location change, because it's not like they're going to be able to like, haha, we just moved it to a different part of the Spade Kingdom.
Right.
I don't think that they would, but I think that would allow for, again, similar to like the Elf Invasion arc, changing the locale in a way that makes sense, while not necessarily like changing it dimensionally rather than like laterally, I guess.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise too, like, again, and this would allow them to, especially if they have to keep moving down or whatever through the different levels, it would allow them to have essentially breathing room between fights or stages of the ritual for it to take place. I could be very wrong, but again, like at a certain point, especially if this ritual is taking place for however many days, because Morris is speeding things up, at any given point, you're gonna you'll know, like, oh hey, the ritual is in this location. And if we keep pressing on for X amount of time, eventually we're gonna get there. Right. So, yeah, that's what I would like to see. Not necessarily what we will see, but when you got a Black Clover fan on here, I gotta theorize. I gotta throw out something to the people out there. Yes. Like, I'm trying, guys. I'm trying for you.
Well, I think we all greatly appreciate it. Did you have anything else for Black Clover?
I don't think at this time I do. I'm appreciating that this relationship between Asta and Lieb is already growing as it is. Yep. And for the people that might be like this is going too fast. Like, they've only just known each other technically for like a week or something. And this is like,
have you read Black Clover before? That. It's pretty fast paced.
Right. Well, but on top of that too, like, again, Lieb has been there with him.
Yes, the whole time.
The entire time that he's had the grimoire. Yeah. The entire time. Lieb had this backstory with Asta's mom. Mm-hmm. There is that history there. Right. Like, up to this point, there has been a lot of repression of emotions and whatnot. Like, repression of even the thought of working together with Asta. But this common goal and whatnot, it's not as fast as you would think, just given the history that they technically have together at this point. Right. They've been together for a long enough point. It's just one of those things where it's just like Asta realizes that Lieb is more of a person than he previously thought. Mm-hmm. And Lieb, again, is just throwing away these previous notions that he had and is actually putting his trust in Asta. And it's showing results. Yes. That's the big thing, is that, like, Lieb is finally getting to, like, follow through with the desires that he's had. And Asta is the one that has been making these things come to fruition. Yes. So for anyone, like, I get it. Black Clover has a fast pace. MHA does too. Mm-hmm. A lot of modern shonen, compared to the previous shonen, yes, are very fast paced. Mm-hmm. Like, you can conclude an entire arc in either Black Clover or MHA in the span of a single course anime. Yes. Compared to the Naruto Chunin exam that lasted forever. Right. Like, it's very different, but in comparison, no. It might seem fast paced, but it's been there from the get go, and I'm appreciating it. Yes. I appreciate, again, all the details in this, and the fact that, like, one last thing on the chapter itself. Sure. I cannot help but appreciate the sheer amount of double page spreads that was in this 15-page chapter. And I get it. Black Clover is short, but it had 4 double page spreads, or at least double page paneling in the entire 15 pages. Yeah. Feels good. That's pretty good. Damn impressive. Yeah. Say what you will, but Tabata's art, it is good. So.
Oh, yeah. That's never been the problem, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Hell yeah. All right, getting into our final chapter of the night, given that One Piece is on break this week, let's go with My Hero Academia, chapter 309, Can't Be a Child Anymore. And we start the chapter with Deku having captured Muscular, aka Jailbreaker, and I love that they did not have this fight drag on forever, right? Like, Muscular is not the main villain. And it's totally fine, in my opinion, to just have this wrapped up, one chapter, done, and let's move on to something else, right? So how do you feel about this chapter?
Yeah, so to start off with, I agree. The fact of the matter is that the reason why Muscular was used to start things off with this arc is to show the growth that Midoriya has had from his first fight with him to now. Mm-hmm. It's important to show that, like, especially given the path that he's currently on, if this fight would have drawn on any longer than it did, it would go to show that he really is not up to snuff to where he needs to be in order for him to take on Shigaraki down the line. Fact of the matter, like, that's just how it is. I'm still not a fan of the name Jailbreaker that they're using. It's not like he's the only one that broke out of jail, so why is he the one being addressed that way?
Right.
Unless it's a translation thing, I don't know. I don't read. For My Hero, I stick to the officials. I don't. This is one that I thankfully don't normally have to deal with spoilers, but I digress.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that like the first people that we see are the only two other people that have names and faces from Yo's school from the license exam thing. So I was just like, all right, these guys look familiar. I'm going to go over to the wiki. And then I was like, yeah, sure enough. Those two, Yo and his girlfriend, are the only four people that actually had names and faces from that arc. So
sure.
I love the fact that one of them is named Mr. Smith. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
It's great.
Do you know any other details about these two? I did not look them up. I didn't really care to. They didn't seem like super important characters, but did they say their powers or anything?
Well, one of them is named Boomerang Man.
That one I can kind of imagine what his power is. What the heck is the deal with Mr. Smith?
Mr. Smith, I didn't look it up. Okay. I'm guessing, if I had to guess though, just given his exterior, he's got some kind of reinforcement quirk. I could be very wrong.
Right.
I didn't look it up, and I was just more so just making sure, like, oh yeah, these guys were from the same school and whatnot. So
right.
But at the same time, I was also like, from what I could remember, I was like, Yo is the only one that had a decent enough power, especially considering the one girl is telescopic and can just put herself into her body, and just like,
yep.
Why?
Well, we get a nice, a very touching scene as these kind of civilians actually come out with like a support item, like this kind of floating. Is it a floating? I guess they're holding it. They don't seem like they're holding it very much. I think this is like a floating kind of a gurney or whatever you call this thing that they're putting Yo on page 2. Regardless, it's nice to see that they're like helping out, and they don't want people to die either. They just didn't want to be told what to do. So it'll be interesting if they actually do go back to the school to be protected after this, given that they probably otherwise would have been completely annihilated by Muscular or whatever.
Right. And the fact of the matter is, I said, and I guess we can at least hear you out from here. Yes. Again, they realize it's like, oh, yeah, well, maybe they didn't save us, but whoever saved him did save us. Yeah. So, yeah. Right. And then Yo is just like waking up in a haze, and he's just like, that guy was kind of like that one guy, but he's got a completely different vibe from when he was just a little weenie hut junior boy.
Yep. I love that too. So good. And then Deku just like drops down right at a police station and is like, hey, Yo, you got something to hold this guy? You got an Iron Maiden here, right? All right. Well, bye. I got shit to do.
Yep. Which so I'm fascinated by that, like, because obviously an Iron Maiden is like a torture device from medieval times, where it's just like a metal human like coffin with spikes on the inside. So and unfortunately we didn't get to see what they were, but I'm very curious to see what those are in relation to like quirk suppression and whatnot. Very curious about that, and I'm very sad that we didn't get to see it, but it's just like, haha, I'm here, now I'm gone. And that's more or less just Midoriya in the chapter. It's just like, I'm here, and now I'm gone, and now I'm here, and now I'm gone again. And just like,
I think we can, I think we can assume that the Iron Maiden here is not like a traditional torture device with the spikes in the middle or whatever. Like, that seems inhumane relative to how heroes seem to operate. They don't like to kill people. They like to hand them off to the cops or whatever. I do wonder if it's like we've seen, say, All For One. He's been like tied up in kind of a straight jacket, kind of very secure looking metal thing. Is that an Iron Maiden? But I totally agree with you. I wish we would have been at least able to see like a panel of one or something just to get a better picture of what that would entail. But something we can presume that can even hold Muscular here, which is quite a feat. We have Deku jumping back, getting on his telephone, talking to All Might, who apparently has been delegated to the getaway driver. But a cool scene with them in this alleyway where they're talking about this like support item and stuff. Very cool.
Don't forget the fact that he says, all right, the fourth is quieted down, which the fourth was the danger sense.
Yeah, spider sense.
So, thanks to that now quieting down, because Muscular's gone, he's like, all right, there's no immediate danger in my immediate surroundings. Mm-hmm. We're good. Mm-hmm. And I still can't get over the way that his costume looks now, mm-hmm. especially since we're going for more of the negative eyes compared to what it was previously, where it was just like the bright eyes, like looking at people and whatnot, and just like, oh my god, I love the vigilante-ish look that he has, and I will say it's also interesting. It looks like, at least in looking throughout like other parts of the chapter and whatnot, I think they all have like the same phone design.
I think it's Endeavor. Like there's this E on the phone.
Yeah.
I feel like it must be some special communicator from Endeavor's group or something.
Yeah.
Or the E is in reference to some brand that I just don't know, like some fake brand in the universe or something. But
yeah,
I think Endeavor
either or.
Yeah.
Right. But the fact that like it's the same phone throughout the series, or not the series, throughout the episode. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, episode, freaking chapter. Oh my god,
I knew what you meant.
I'm losing it, but I like that as a tiny detail that goes on throughout, so that's kind of neat. But yeah, the fact that like God, All Might's just meeting him in a freaking alleyway, and he's got his sunglasses on, and just waiting for like the hero landing, and just like, are you all right? And it's like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. And then we get explanations on some of the stuff that he's wearing, which is cool.
Yeah, very cool. Like, this mid-gauntlet compression support item that obviously is super useful in keeping his, bones intact or whatever. Very, very cool. It makes a lot of sense that he's able to do this. I guess I'm still waiting for him to have a kind of a healing factor kind of quirk. You know what I mean? Because like, I guess in this chapter we do get exposition that at the hospital, they did heal him. They told him, it's super lucky that you got hurt in a subtly different way than before. Otherwise, you would be probably paralyzed. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's pretty convenient. It's pretty convenient that he is just able to keep going. You know what I mean? After that battle with Shigaraki or whatever.
Yeah. And they do explain it.
Yes. Yes.
So, but that being said, speaking on the gauntlets itself, I'm thinking that they're technically named after him. I'm thinking the mid is just short for Midoriya. If I had to guess, I could be entirely wrong, but
I thought it is interesting. Like the middle of his arm.
It could also be that, but like and it probably is in all honesty. But I was just kind of like Midoriya. But it was interesting to note that they were from America, which is just like they're leaning in on the first movie, which they made canon after the fact. Yep. Probably. I mean, like it would make the most sense, because correct me if I'm wrong, but their design is very similar to the gauntlets that he had in the first movie. Not that I still haven't seen the first movie, but they look very similar to like the band design that he had.
I have seen the first movie. It has been a while. I've only seen it once. I do recall that like the main, character that you meet in this movie as they go to this island or whatever, right? Like he is literally making support items for All Might, like trying to research things that All Might could use. So if this is a literal throwback or related in some way, either of those make complete sense to me, for sure.
And then on top of that, on that same page, then the fact that like All Might is now all in on this, like he's like no going overboard before the big rematch.
Yes.
Like he is all in on this fact that like Deku at some point is going to have to face Shigaraki.
Yes.
he has resigned himself to that, and we see it later on in the chapter as well. But this is that first, like, there's no hesitation here. It's just like, you're doing good so far, but make sure that you don't go past whatever point until you come up to that big fight.
Right. And I find Midoriya's response to All Might here on the top of page 7 to be very interesting, right? Because All Might is just giving him very solid advice. Like, these support items won't last 100%. So if you go 100%, you're going to get injured. And so no going overboard before the big match, right? Before the big rematch. And Deku says audibly, right, ... But he thinks in his head, no matter what happens to me, which tells me that he's actually internally still a little defiant against All Might. That, like, he's going to tell All Might, yes, I'll be a good boy. Yes, I'm going to try and maintain, like, you know, the health of my arms and legs and stuff like that. But I'm not actually going to care that much, because really it doesn't matter what happens to me. I'm going to do anything that possible to help everyone. You know what I mean? So I think it makes sense for his character. Yep.
And then moving right on into it afterwards, then we get, I guess, at first I thought this was like code word, but then I just realizing now is just like, oh no, this just is freaking ringtone.
Yeah,
is the Silver Age TV special ringtone, and then we've got Hawks speaking on the other line, and it's just like, oh. Hawks is, I guess they are officially in on it right now. Like, this isn't just the Midoriya, I'm on my own. I must be a vigilante patrolling the streets, and I can never have friends or family again. Like, no, like, there are other people that are now in on this situation. So, which again, I don't know. I think some people were like, oh man, Deku's just going totally badass and he's on his own. And it's just like, it wouldn't have made sense for him to be completely on his own, guys. Like, They can't.
Especially given that Hawks and Best Jeanist and, you know, obviously now
Endeavor too,
all know what's happening. They know what's at stake, right? They saw at the first hand what Shigaraki did, and knowing that Shigaraki is related to All For One, related to, like, the biggest bad possible that they could ever face, and Midoriya's like the one that can stop him, you know what I mean? Like, obviously they're going to align themselves behind Midoriya, and that's what we see at the end of the chapter, right? Where it's like, yep, it's a team up, the top three, and Deku and All Might. So super badass. Love that. We get after the scene with Hawks or whatever,
but speaking of the scene with Hawks, because there's one other important thing too, which ties into the fact that they have to be teamed up. As we know at this point, Deku can be pinpointed at any given time. Yes. Which, because of that, means that he was essentially given two options moving forward. One of them was to be in complete isolation, almost akin to All For One, where you are given every single protection, but we know where you are, and we can do things against it. Or you are constantly on the move. Yes. And that way you are not putting necessarily specific people in danger because you are constantly everywhere. And because of that, he's doing this, he's able to be proactive. He's able to get these villains off the street again. And like, because of that, because he's being proactive while they're not, while they aren't together, while they haven't formed a cohesive attack unit or whatnot, he's able to pick them off one by one to lower their combat power once he finally gets to the end game.
Slowly whittle them down.
Yes. So it's, that unfortunately then puts All Might in the position that he is, where he is the relay point between Midoriya and everybody else. Right. Like he, once again, resigning himself to being in that role because he has to. Yep. And Deku has resigned himself to it as well. So, and then we get to the hospital scene.
Yes. Very crazy scene, where the previous scene with Midoriya's mom and All Might, was very powerful. You know what I mean? Her crying and basically saying like, I don't agree to this. I don't want my son to be, in danger, right? And now it seems like on the top of page 11, or bottom of page 10, she says, "May I ask for an explanation?" Right, and at the top of page 11, All Might kind of thinking in his mind, probably looking at Midoriya, like, "Is that okay?" And then we have a blank panel. So boom, okay, now the mom knows the whole story, presumably, right? So like they've explained all for one and one for all, and the gravity of the situation, and then getting into talking about Midoriya specifically, and his ability and why he's the guy, right? And she understandably is very scared, you know what I mean, and doesn't want her son to be in this situation. But I think they do a fantastic job of kind of just telling her like, yeah, you can be sad, but we're still gonna do this. So just trust us, right?
We're unfortunately at that point of no return. Yeah, and that's where the issue is. One more thing. Going back again. With page 10.
Yes.
Because when we're explaining, or when the doctor is explaining things and whatnot, we finally learn part of the reason why Deku isn't in a mess like everyone thought he was.
Right.
And the fact of the matter was that he was able to use Black Whip, similar to what the mid-gauntlets are doing for him now, and they were causing suppression. Where they were making it so that like the force of his punches weren't just breaking through his arms and like causing more damage than what they were.
Absorbing, and then after that, whatever,
right. And then after that, we've officially learned at this point, based on these numbers, Midoriya can now use 45% of his power.
Yep, without being hurt at all, probably, right? Like that's his minimum or his maximum of that's fine for him to use. His body has gotten stronger. Very badass.
Yep. And with the gauntlets and whatnot, that only helps his case. The fact that like he's able to reinforce his arms, and now, I mean, like, I'm hoping still that like the shoot style is still more of his main way of fighting, because like I get it, they made the gauntlets that he can use like Air Force and whatnot with it, but if he just goes back to punching and whatnot, like that does admittedly make me kind of like, well, there goes the previous stakes of him with how badly damaged his arms were. So
right.
Which even then, like his arms, and I mean this could also just be how it's depicted in the manga, but like his arms look better than how they did after he fought Muscular. So I'm kind of like, did his arms technically get better after fight? But the fact that we are now at a 45% point is absolutely insane, especially when you consider like 5% was strong. It was like it put you above the average human and whatnot, and like he could knock people around. It wasn't doing enough damage to most people, but when you now think of that times 9, he is becoming an actual contender. Oh yeah, so I'd love to see it.
Absolutely.
But yes, we may get back to Midoriya's mom and like my god. This,
what did you think about Midoriya's mom scene? I think I pretty much said everything I wanted to say about it.
Yep, oh god, it's really heartbreaking. Because like at the end of the day, she's just like she's hearing the fact that like ultimately he has to fight Shigaraki, but she's like, but you didn't beat him before,
right?
That's how you got in the hospital in the first place. Like how are you going to be able to like do this? And he's just like, I've got to, like I can't let. And like he flashes back to all these people that got hurt because they were in his vicinity,
right?
And got hurt because of it. Like he can't let those people get hurt again. Like, and it's like he realizes like that she's sad, and like then you've got just oh my god, the emotional scenes of the flashbacks with him and his mom and like playing pretend, like with him being All Might and.
Yep.
The fact that she said like the fact, Mom, that you said thank you meant a lot to me. And like I love you so much, and like I do have to go, but I will be home. Yes. Like he is resolved to do this, but he is resolved to coming back at the end of this. And then this determination is what makes All Might be like, no, this isn't the time for me to bow down and apologize. This is the time for me to stand up, be by his side, and support him in this heavy decision that he has made. Yep. There's no more room for apologies. It is time for action and support. And I love it. And then it's immediately followed up by Best Jeanist holding a phone in the most ridiculous way possible. So, you know, and Hawk's just sitting there and just like, well, that's an interesting way to hold a phone. And I'm like, yeah.
It's like a joke pose almost.
Pretty much, yeah. And then, oh my god. And then Gran Torino.
This scene with Gran Torino is just absolutely incredible. You know what I mean? Like, I love, on the one hand, him saying, like, and obviously Midori has just told him what Nana said, you know, from the vestige space. Like, tell Gran Torino, you know, I'm sorry and all that. And him saying flat out, like, I should have made the kill. And then he immediately says, like, hey, Deku obviously responds negatively to that statement. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very grave statement, a very powerful, scary statement sometimes. You know what I mean? And he says, like, hey, don't be so rigid, you know? Killing can be another way to save someone. Very, very, very powerful. And then obviously giving him his cape, which to him is more of a scarf almost, right? But like he's got the yellow cape. He was wearing it earlier in the chapter, and a good throwback to that color spread on chapter 306, where we saw, you know, Deku and Shigaraki kind of sitting on this, you know, on these TVs or whatever, and Deku had that yellow cape or whatever. Just like, my God, what a beautiful page 16 there.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's just it's really hard, but like again, he's resigned himself to it too. It's just like, at this point I can't. So it's up to you. Yeah, and I believe in you, and like you can do this. Like, but yeah, it just I think it's important what he said. The fact that killing can be another way to save someone. Because that's the thing, is that Midoriya wants to save everyone.
Yep. Like,
and realistically, it's true. Like, sometimes death has to be the answer. Especially like Shigaraki's one thing, but just given the quirk singularity theory, there are more and more people where their quirks are becoming too dangerous for them to handle.
Right.
And sometimes death is a mercy. Like, it's not something that I want him to experience, but I think at some point it's going to happen. Yep. Whether that is at the end or something leading up to it, I think it's going to happen, because obviously, I know one of the biggest complaints that people have about MHA is, oh, but what about the stakes? And it's just like, okay, first of all, yes, there were stakes. Yes, a lot of people died. Maybe not enough people that you wanted to die didn't die, but everything that changed in society is stakes.
Exactly.
People.
100%.
Like, a lot of people got out of prison. That is stakes. The fact that, like, again, society changed as a whole. You have certain civilians, again, that were so apprehensive to Yo and the other heroes' help. Yep. Is stakes. Yep. The fact that other people have been forced into these various schools for their own safety is stakes. And I get it. People are bloodthirsty. It's one of those truths with the My Hero fandom. They are bloodthirsty. They can try to deny it, but they are. Right. I think people are going to die again. I don't know who. Right. But that line, you can't just say that line without it having some kind of fruition down the line. It's got to happen. So
I totally agree. I totally agree.
mm.
Did you have any thoughts on the last page, just overall in terms of this team up of the whole Endeavor, Hawks, Best Jeanist, and Deku and All Might?
It's going to be interesting. Because I'm very curious, especially given Endeavor, and now his relationship with his son, with Bakugo, other people, and even same thing can be said with Hawks, and same thing can be said with Best Jeanist. It makes me question what kind of information or leeway they can actually give to the other UA students. Because obviously Deku's friends are all going to be concerned for his well-being and whatnot. I mean, if I had to guess, I'm thinking that Deku cut off communication with Bakugo. Like, because, I mean, up to this point, like, yeah, he decided to confide in him, but after that last fight, there's no way he wants to put him in that kind of line of danger again. Right. So, like, I feel like at some point they're going to be reunited and Bakugo is going to deck him and he's just going to be like, hey, I told you that we were in this together kind of thing. But I'm interested to see what kind of information or how they react to other people asking them about the situation, if people even know. But again, given the fact that they are the top 3 heroes, like, they got to know something. So I'm very curious to see how that unfolds. I'm very curious to see how even the stuff with Endeavor and his family, how that unfolds. Right. With how they have to handle Dabi and whatnot. So I'm very curious. Best Jeanist is the frickin' man. I mean, the fact that guy lost ribs and died and then he didn't die and then, like, he's just like, I'm the best. Look at me and my magnificent handling of giant metal wires and whatnot. Like, so good. And with Hawks, it's... So one of the interesting things to note with Hawks, and again, this is less more so on the team-up side of things, more on the detail work with Hawks, his wings have not grown back to what they were. Like, and that makes me question if they ever will. His voice is still burned. You can see, like, on page 8, for example, you can see his speech bubbles are still wiggly, as if he's still damage in his vocal cords or whatever his throat. Oh, that is a fantastic detail catch right there. You are correct, sir. But I don't. The team up is definitely going to be interesting. If he ever gets healed fully, you know what I mean? Like, his wings, as you're saying, right? Like, he was the guy with those fucking wings, and if he doesn't have those wings, like, dang, what is he doing right now? Yeah. Which, I mean, at this point, the only person that could potentially realistically maybe do it would be Eri, but again, we don't know the full capabilities that she has. And I mean, even that being said, and I've stuck to this theory before, and I will continue to stick with it. The reason why, like, Eraserhead is still the same as he is, like, with all the images that we've been shown post injuries and whatnot. I don't think that they can actually show somebody that is seriously injured to Eri just because of any PTSD that it would bring back. Sure. The fact that she was able to do what she did with Mirio, there weren't any physical signs of certain things that she saw. Like, for all intents and purposes, Mirio looked the same. It was just internal things that had to be changed. Whereas with Hawks or Eraserhead, gruesome injuries. Yeah. Very gruesome injuries. For her to see that kind of stuff, like, just like go panic and whatnot. So, and as far as we're concerned, the only other person that has any kind of, like, healing of any kind of caliber is Recovery Girl. And even she has her limits to what she has. So, which, again, another thing with stakes. The fact that there are actual injuries that these people have, like, is great. You don't see that as often with frickin' other series. Like, just saying. I mean, just to make a direct contrast, like, with Naruto, how he was, like, he did, like, his Rasen Shuriken one time. Tsunade was just like, he can never do this again, or his chakra points will be destroyed. And it's just like, Naruto's just like, power up, and it's just like infinite Rasen shurikens. It's not the same here with My Hero Academia. There have been actual stakes. Like, I made the joke of like Midoriya's arms not looking as damaged as they were compared to Muscular's, but the damage is still there.
Yes.
And for other people that have experienced damage, the effects have still been there. Those are legitimate stakes, so people need to stop complaining about it. But yeah, it's just another great chapter of My Hero Academia, and I continue to be excited for what's to come, as well as a potential maybe student breakout mission to be like, we're gonna go find Midoriya and support him kind of thing. And,
oh my god. Good stuff,
yeah.
Good stuff. Do you have anything else for this chapter?
No, honestly, I think we covered everything here. Yeah, just, again, solid chapter. And even if it started out with the only 2 other named people from Yo's school joining the fray and ultimately doing nothing.
Right.
You know how it is, but yeah. I guess one last thing. Since people love complaining about character management and 1A, I can't wait to have continued non-development from other characters in class 1A that have done almost nothing. Yeah, let's do it. More nothing with people like Coda or Invisible Girl, like just like. And who knows if we even still have a frickin' traitor at the school or not? I don't even know anymore. It's just I mean, that's a thing supposedly, but I mean, well, okay, all right. No, if I legitimately had to guess, there probably still is a traitor at UA, and there's probably some kind of scene that's going to happen where, with all the people are safe there, the traitor is going to try and jeopardize that. If I had to guess,
sure. So much stuff remaining for us in Hero, but that was
supposedly
right. Yes. But yeah, fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for that great Hero analysis. But yeah, I think that'll do it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. If you did, go ahead and slap a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new, and click the bell icon next to that subscribe button so we can notify you when new content is live. And of course, go ahead and visit the video description below to find, as I said earlier, links to our social media accounts like Twitter, online communities like Discord, links to listen to the Project Manga podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever else you normally listen to your podcasts. Check out our online store and Patreon. We would greatly appreciate your support. And with all that being said, I think that will do it for this episode of the Project Manga podcast. Thank you again, Axel, for joining. This was a lot of fun.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Hell yeah, awesome. But yeah, wrapping up, I'm your host, Nickums, and we'll catch you next time.